Chapter 395. Song Qing-shu smiled helplessly when he saw Icy Snow grabbing the hem of her dress tightly and forbade herself from taking it off. All right then. Anyway, I can force myself to do it now. After that, he kissed her tender red lips. After Song Qing-shu entered her body, Icy Snow actually acted out of character. She swayed her waist seductively, showing the intention of rubbing against him. She secretly made up her mind to make Song Qing-shu release himself quickly. Song Qing-shu didn't expect Icy Snow to be so unrestrained. He felt that the beauty beneath him was unusually moist, so he lost control of the frequency and fell into her trap. He couldn't help hugging her and pretended to be angry. "You're so sinister." Icy Snow pushed him away. "Aren't you happy?" Song Qing-shu couldn't help but feel stifled. "It feels pretty good." "Isn't that good?" All right. Hurry up and tidy up. Miss Ya might be here soon." Icy Snow urged with a blushing face. "It's still early. How can it be so?" Before he could finish his sentence, Song Qing-shu's expression suddenly changed. His divine sense could sense that Xia Qingqing was currently lifting the hem of her dress and stomping up the stairs. Ugh! Speak of the devil. Song Qing-shu wore a strange expression and hurriedly tidied up his clothes. He wasn't afraid of being seen by Xia Qingqing, but he was worried that he would hurt her heart. Icy Snow's beautiful face turned pale. She kicked him off the bed and hurriedly tidied up her dress. Fortunately, she didn't take it off completely just now. After tidying it up, apart from some creases on her dress, there wasn't anything wrong with it. Big Brother Song. Xia Qingqing ran in excitedly, but suddenly noticed that there was another woman in the room. Her voice came to an abrupt halt. Although the two of them had tidied up their clothes, a man and a woman were hiding in the room in broad daylight. They even closed the door. Xia Qingqing wasn't a fool. So how could she not know what the two of them were doing just now when she saw the faint blush on Icy Snow's fair cheeks? Xia Qingqing carefully sized up Icy Snow. Even though Icy Snow was a little older than her, she was extremely beautiful and had a graceful figure. In particular, her temperament was as pure as colored glass. As a woman, Xia Qingqing had to admit that Icy Snow was charming. While Xia Qingqing was sizing up Icy Snow was also sizing up Xia Qingqing. Icy Snow saw that Xia Qingqing was beautiful, especially the faint flirtatious look between her brows. It was no wonder that Song Qing-shu couldn't forget her. After the two women began to look at each other, the room fell into a strange silence. Song Qing-shu felt a headache coming on. He quietly flicked a wisp of wind from his finger and hit Miao Rulin. Miao Rulin cried out in pain and woke up with a start. She drowsily sat up and looked around. When she saw Xia Qingqing, she couldn't help but ask curiously, "Big brother, who is this beautiful big sister?" Song Qing-shu almost hugged Miao Rulin and kissed her twice. He thought that children were indeed the best weapon to resolve awkwardness. Moreover, her words were so well spoken. Hearing Miao Rulin's words, Xia Qingqing was indeed delighted. Her tense face also melted. Song Qing-shu quickly coughed. "Let me introduce you. This is Xia Qingqing, the wife of the former leader of the Golden Snake Camp, Yuan Qingji. This is Icy Snow, the wife of the Liaodong hero, Hu Yidao. This little girl is the orphan of the Golden Buddha, Miao Renfeng. Madam and Miss? What a mess." Xia Qingqing was embarrassed and complained to herself. When she heard Song Qing-shu introducing Icy Snow's identity, she couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Is she also a pitiful widow like me? Just like how Icy Snow empathized with her, Xia Qingqing also felt a sense of closeness toward Icy Snow. However, when she shifted her gaze to Song Qing-shu, she gnashed her teeth in hatred. "This bastard, he specializes in seducing widows. I'm not a little girl." Miao Rulin muttered discontentedly, causing Song Qing-shu and the others to smile. With Miao Rulin's interruption, Icy Snow also came back to her senses. She walked over and pulled Xia Qingqing's hand. What a charming and lovely girl. No wonder Uncle keeps mentioning Miss Xia. Xia Qingqing suddenly felt a strange sense of absurdity. She thought, on the surface, I'm still Madame Yuan, and you're still Lady Hu. It's probably inappropriate for you to say such ambiguous words to Song Qing-shu. Xia Qingqing finally reacted and quickly smiled. How can I be as beautiful as you, big sister? Thus, the two women began a very meaningless dialogue. Song Qing-shu listened to it and quickly interrupted. Yu, what's the current situation of the Golden Snake Camp? Yu, why are you addressing me so intimately in front of others? I'm using the identity of Madame Yuan. Xia Qingqing glared at him snappily. Just as she was about to answer, she suddenly remembered that there were other people present. She couldn't help but look at Icy Snow worriedly. Song Qing-shu knew her concerns and quickly said, Yu, there's no harm in saying it. We're all on the same side. Hearing the words on the same side, Icy Snow and Xia Qingqing couldn't help but blush. They thought, if that's the case, why did you introduce Madame Yuan and Lady Hu just now? Xia Qingqing looked up and saw Icy Snow staring at her with an awkward expression. The two women were stunned at first, but soon smiled at each other. Xia Qingqing cleared her throat and said softly, Ever since Big Brother Yuan got into trouble, the Golden Snake Camp quickly fell apart. Several people with real power established their own camps. These leaders had grievances with each other in the past. It wasn't a big deal with Big Brother Yuan in the past, but after Big Brother Yuan left, they were unwilling to submit to each other. Very soon, they started fighting each other and formed a deep hatred. If it wasn't for the Imperial Army coming to encircle and annihilate them like Mount Tai, they wouldn't have gathered together for a discussion. Song Qing-shu sighed with emotion. Kangxi really had a good strategy. After Yuan Qingji's death, most people in the imperial court advocated to pursue the victorious enemy. However, Kangxi abnormally stopped all previous orders to encircle and annihilate them. Without external pressure, the Golden Snake Camp really fell into internal chaos and fell apart. If later on he was not substituted by Wei Xiaobao, Kangxi would be able to wipe out the Golden Snake Battalion, this great danger, without losing a single troop or soldier. How many forces are there in the Golden Snake Camp now? Song Qing-shu suddenly asked. Xia Qingqing pondered for a moment and explained, the Golden Snake Camp has a lot of mountains. There are a total of 12 influential mountains. First are the direct subordinates that Big Brother Yuan left behind. Some of the subordinates are those who used to be on good terms with Big Brother Yuan, such as Hu Guinan and Tai Luohan. Some are the old subordinates of Big Brother Yuan's father, such as Sun Zhongshou, Zhuanggua, and Ai Hao, and Luo Daqian. Hu Guinan and Tai Luohan are still fine. After all, I had a good relationship with them in the past. As for the others, although they respect me as their leader in name, I may not be able to truly mobilize them. As for the other mountains, Gai Mengchong and Meng Bofiai have quite a reputation in Jianghu. Everyone gives him face. Plus, his family is quite wealthy, so he's the most powerful. The leader of the 72 islands, Zhang Qiun, controls the most elite navy under the command of the Golden Snake Camp. His power is also one of the best, but he usually doesn't participate in the disputes between the mountains. Chu Honglu used to be the master of the Thousand Willow Village. He was a famous bandit in Shandong, and most of his subordinates were former subordinates of the Thousand Willow Village. After Big Brother Yuan died, he returned to his old profession. Sha Tong Tian, the master of the Evil Tiger Ravine, was once as famous as Chu Honglu in Shandong. Most of his subordinates were former subordinates of the Evil Tiger Ravine. He and Chu Honglu have always been at odds because of the conflict of interests. However, because they were both bandits in Shandong, they often came into contact. Although there were many disputes, it wasn't to the extent of falling out. Cheng Qingzhu, the master of Hebei's Green Bamboo Gang. Although he has inextricable ties with the beggar sect, his reputation is different from the beggar sect's chivalrous reputation. They engage in the shady business of robbing houses. For many years, because they have crossed the line, Chu Honglu and Sha Tongtian view them as common enemies. When Xia Qingqing mentioned the Green Bamboo Gang, she subconsciously recalled the situation when Ajio mingled in the Green Bamboo Gang. She couldn't help but sigh softly. I wonder how you are now, Xia Qingqing quickly composed herself and continued to explain. Jiao Weiner and Luo Liru are husband and wife. They are the daughter and disciple of Jiangsu's Golden Dragon Gang's master, Jiao Gongli. Most of their subordinates are former subordinates of the Golden Dragon Gang. Their power has always been on good terms with Big Brother Yuan. Xia Qingqing suddenly sighed. She had always felt very apologetic toward Jiao Weiner. Back then, Jiao Weiner also liked Yuan Qingji. At that time, she was young and immature. She was jealous and unreasonable, causing Jiao Weiner to marry her senior brother, Luo Liru. Yi, what's wrong? Song Qingshu noticed the change in her mood and asked with concern. Nothing. Xia Qingqing forced a smile and continued to explain. Great Master surely used to be the abbot of Hunan's Nanyang Qingliang Temple. In order to save the common people, he also joined the Golden Snake Camp. Although he doesn't have many subordinates, he has the most experts in each of the mountains. It is said that he is on good terms with the abbot of Mount Song and the abbot of Putian South Shaolin. Shui Jian, before joining the Golden Snake Camp, he was the commander of the Ming Dynasty. Therefore, the people under his command are the most elite and the best at fighting. Nie Tianfeng, previously the chief of Huainan's Flying Tiger Valley stronghold. He is also a robber and does not get along with Chu Honglu, Sha Tianguang, and Cheng Qingzhu. Hearing his name, Song Qingshu's expression became strange. He muttered in his heart, "Fortunately, you are not called Niefeng. Otherwise, I would really be a little worried that I would not be able to withstand your snow guzzleblade and wind god's kick." Xia Qingqing naturally could not hear the thoughts in Song Qingshu's heart and continued to speak. Rong Tsai, previously the chief of Zhujiang's dragon swimming gang. It is said that he recently established a relationship with the Southern Song dynasty. However, everyone is busy with their own affairs and has no time to care about him. There is also Situ Bolei. It is said that he used to be a subordinate of Wu Sangye, the commander of Shanhai Pass. Because he was dissatisfied with Wu Sangye letting the Manchus enter the pass, he left with some of his dissatisfied subordinates. Later, he settled down in Mount Wanwu. Previously, it seems that they were surrounded by the Manchus. After breaking out of the encirclement, they sought refuge with the Golden Snake Camp. After all, they are all from the regular army. His strength also plays an important role in the mountains. Situ Bolei, Song Qingshu's heart was slightly moved. After saving them, he let them seek refuge with the Golden Snake Camp. Now it seemed that he was right. Chapter 396. After Xia Qingqing finished introducing the forces of Golden Snake Camp on the various mountains, she suddenly showed worry on her face. According to your original plan, I will gather them and propose that whoever can lead Golden Snake Camp through this crisis will be appointed as the new leader. I thought it would take a lot of persuasion, but they seem to have the same idea and quickly reached an agreement. That's normal. Song Qingshu smiled. Everyone wants to take the opportunity to become the new Golden Snake King. I'm afraid you won't be able to laugh if you hear the next news. Xia Qingqing rolled her eyes. What news? Song Qingshu was stunned. Gai Mengchong, Meng Bofiai, said that the election of the Golden Snake King is very important and we can't let anyone participate, so we need to set a qualification in advance, Xia Qingqing answered. Qualification? Song Qingshu was thoughtful. Yes, Xia Qingqing said worriedly. According to Meng Bofiai, we can't just hand over the power of the Golden Snake Camp to an unknown person. So he proposed that each mountain recommend a candidate with good character, martial arts, and ability. On one hand, it saves time for blind elections, and, on the other hand, it ensures that no matter who becomes the Golden Snake King, it won't be disadvantageous to the Golden Snake Camp. As soon as Meng Bofiai said this, the leaders of the other mountains all agreed, as if it had been agreed long ago. I see. Song Qingshu fell into a deep voice. Are there any specific requirements for the candidate proposed by each mountain? His character, martial arts, and ability are all too lacking. Yes, that's what I'm most worried about. Xia Qingqing nodded and said, the candidate proposed by each mountain must be approved by at least half of the other mountains to be eligible to participate. That means each candidate must be approved by at least 6 forces, right? Song Qingshu thought that it was indeed a little troublesome. Yes, that's why I've been waiting for you to discuss it. I didn't expect you to arrive today. Xia Qingqing couldn't help but complain. No wonder Xia Qingqing received his secret signal and came looking for him in such a hurry. Song Qingshu secretly regretted bringing Zhao Min to Kaifeng for medical treatment and then fooling around with icy snow on the road. He really wasted a lot of time. Icy Snow seemed to know what Song Qingshu was thinking. She couldn't help but glare at him with a flushed face. I was too careless. Song Qingshu could not help but hold Xia Qingqing's hand. Which mountains are you sure you can get the support of? As Icy Snow was still standing at the side, her hands were held by Song Qingshu. Xia Qingqing subconsciously wanted to pull her hands back, but Song Qingshu refused to let go. Xia Qingqing glanced at Icy Snow with a blushing face. Seeing that Icy Snow was not surprised at all, it was clear that she already knew about their relationship. Xia Qingqing secretly stomped her feet. This be Astra's starred. He revealed everything about our relationship. How can I be embarrassed? However, she still had to answer this question. Xia Qingqing carefully pondered for a while. Then, she said in an uncertain tone, the Golden Dragon Gang's Jiao Weiner and her husband have always been on good terms with Big Brother Yuan. Although Jiao Weiner and I have had some misunderstandings, it shouldn't be a big problem to obtain her consent. What misunderstanding? Song Qingshu was stunned. Oh, don't ask anymore. Xia Qingqing's face turned red. She thought that she was too embarrassed to tell him about these old matters of jealousy. Okay, I won't ask anymore. You can continue. Song Qingshu saw that Xia Qingqing looked like a kitten whose tail had been stepped on. He could not help but smile. This time, it was Xia Qingqing's turn to be bashful. Oh, that's it. That's it. Song Qingshu was stunned. You mean you don't have the confidence to fight for the other mountains? Xia Qingqing's face was full of embarrassment. Oh, in the past, Big Brother Yuan was in charge of the Golden Snake Camp. He didn't intervene in the specific matters. He didn't have a deep relationship with the other mountains. It's not strange. Hearing that Xia Qingqing's voice was getting lower and lower, Song Qingshu felt angry and funny at the same time. It seems that you're now a commander without an army. Xia Qingqing pouted in dissatisfaction. That's why I needed you to discuss it. But you came so late. Since things had already come to this, it was useless to say so much. Song Qingshu quickly thought for a while. Then he suddenly asked, do you know who the other mountains intend to nominate? I only know that Jiao Weiner and the others seem to intend to nominate Murongfu. Xia Qingqing replied. The forces of the other mountains seem to deliberately hide it from me. They haven't revealed their plans. The Golden Dragon Gang is from Jiangsu. It's not strange that they would nominate Murongfu, who is also from Gusu. Song Qingshu muttered to himself. It seems that the other mountains' nominees represent their own interests. Xia Qingqing rolled her eyes. Suddenly, she revealed a sly smile. You don't have to be so pessimistic. In fact, there's a mountain that nominated you. Isn't it your mountain that nominated me? Song Qingshu looked at her strangely. What do you mean by my mountain head or mountain head? You make me sound like a bandit's wife. Xia Qingqing snorted. I'm talking about another mountain head. Precisely Wangwu Pai's Situ Boulay. Hearing Situ Boulay nominate him, Song Qingshu couldn't help but stare blankly. He originally wanted to go and persuade him to agree with him. He didn't expect that he would be directly nominated. I heard that Situ Boulay has a beautiful and well-behaved female apprentice. Tell me honestly, did you hook up with her? Xia Qingqing gently bit her lower lip and looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. When Icy Snow at the side heard this, she felt that this was very similar to Song Qingshu's style of doing things. So, she also looked at him with a smile. No, I just happened to save them before. Song Qingshu couldn't stand the ambiguous gazes of the two women. He quickly explained the matter of him leading the troops to wipe out Wangwu faction and secretly letting them go. If that's the case, then it's no wonder Icy Snow suddenly changed the topic. Isn't that female apprentice very beautiful? Not bad. She's not as beautiful as you two, but she speaks softly and is quite gentle. Song Qingshu answered subconsciously. Then, he suddenly cursed inwardly. Icy Snow and Xia Qingqing glanced at each other. Seeing that the other also had the same as expected expression, they couldn't help but smile at each other, feeling that the gap between them had disappeared. At the side, Miao Rulin pouted her small mouth with a depressed look on her face. She thought, "Why is there another sister?" Song Qingshu deliberately coughed twice and said embarrassedly, "Now we need to do two things. First, we need to strive for the approval of more than half of the mountain peaks to qualify for the candidacy. Second, we need to figure out who the other mountain peaks are supporting so that we can prepare in advance." Icy Snow nodded and said, "Yes, we're pressed for time now. How about this? Miss Xia, you accompany Uncle to immediately set off to visit each mountain peak. I'll stay here to take care of Rulin and be your backup support." Xia Qingqing was stunned when she heard that. She understood that the other party deliberately created an opportunity for her to be alone with Song Qingshu. She was grateful, but also a little embarrassed. Just as she was hesitating whether she should pretend to postpone, a knock suddenly came from the door. Who is it? In fact, Song Qingshu had long noticed that someone was coming. But judging from the other party's breathing, he knew that it was not an expert, so he didn't care. "May I ask if Prince Song is here? Who would look for me at this time?" Song Qingshu glanced at Xia Qingqing. Xia Qingqing's eyes were also bewildered. She quickly covered her face with a veil. Her identity was special, so it was not convenient for the Golden Snake Camp to know that she had a close relationship with Song Qingshu. Icy Snow also walked to Miao Rulin's side and guarded her behind her. Only then did Song Qingshu go to open the door. "My name is Situ. Greetings, Prince Song." A young man stood outside the door. When he saw Song Qingshu's appearance, he was immediately overjoyed. "So it's Brother Situ." Song Qingshu had met him once in Mount Wanwu. He recognized him as Situ Bulei's son, Situ He. "My father heard that Prince Song fought with the Mongolian and Khitan experts a few days ago. He guessed that your excellency would pass by here, so he specially ordered me to wait here for a long time. Brother Song has finally arrived." Situ He suddenly found that there were two women in the room. He was immediately stunned. One was an incomparably beautiful young married woman. Although the other was masked, she had a graceful figure. Presumably, her appearance was not bad. He thought that since the last time they parted, his junior sister had been reluctant to forget him. Perhaps it was just the falling flowers but the heartless water. "May I know why Senior Situ is looking for me?" Although Song Qingshu had heard some rumors from Xia Qingqing, it was still better to confirm it. Situ He looked troubled and said, "There are too many people here. Would young Master Song be willing to follow me to our stronghold?" Song Qingshu and Xia Qingqing looked at each other. Noticing that the other nodded secretly, he smiled and said, "Since the last time we parted, Song Mao often missed old hero Situ's elegant demeanor. This time, old hero's invitation is more than I could ask for." Situi's face revealed a happy expression. He moved sideways to make way. "Please, you come with me." Before leaving, Song Qingshu beckoned to Xia Qingqing. Noticing the hesitation on Situi's face, he quickly explained, "She is my personal maid. She is one of us." Xia Qingqing could not help but roll her eyes at him. She thought, "In any case, I am now the nominal mistress of the Golden Snake Battalion. Unexpectedly, I am called a maid in front of my subordinates. Humph, later, no matter what, I cannot take off my veil. Otherwise, I will lose face." When Situ heard this, he was even more speechless. He thought that if a maid was so charming, his junior sister might not have a chance. Along the way, Song Qingshu and Situ chatted about some things after they parted last time. Intentionally or unintentionally, he asked Situ Bulei why he was looking for him this time. Situ always smiled, but did not say anything. He just replied that everything would be answered by his father. After arriving at Wangwu faction's camp, Song Qingshu secretly nodded. Situ Bulei was indeed worthy of being the former Guaning Iron Cavalry. The whole camp's layout was strict. It was secretly integrated with the art of war. It was incomparable to the ordinary grass bandit stronghold. "Prince Song, this old man has finally waited for you to come." Situ Bulei had long received the news. He came out with a group of confidants from afar to greet him. Big Brother Song. Zheng Rou's gentle voice was also full of surprise. But soon she noticed Xia Qingqing beside Song Qingshu. The smile on her face could not help but freeze. Old hero Situ, Miss Zheng. Song Qingshu returned the greetings one by one. Zheng Rou was originally worried about her gains and losses. She thought that a famous hero like him might not remember an ordinary little girl like her, even though she was touched and hugged by him at that time. Thinking of the time when Song Qingshu broke into Mount Wanwu, in order to see her Shifu, he took her hostage and even threatened to take off her clothes. Zheng Rou's round face blushed. Although she hated him to death at that time, she later understood that it was just a misunderstanding. Song Qingshu did it to save Wanwu faction. Since then, in the dead of the night, Zheng Rou found that she could no longer forget the scene at that time. Even in her dreams, Song Qingshu jumped over the window and appeared in front of her. Now that she heard that the person in her dreams still remembered her name, Zheng Rou felt extremely happy. Even the gloomy mood of seeing Xia Qingqing was swept away. Chapter 397. Prince Song. Ever since the last time we parted, this old man has never forgotten about you. After the group of people arrived at the main hall, Situ Boulay said with a clear laugh. You old glass. Song Qingshu felt a burst of disgust in his heart, but his face was full of smiles. We haven't seen each other for many days. Old hero Situ's elegant bearing is still the same. As if Wei Xiaobao's words had touched his heart, Situ Boulay heaved a long sigh. What kind of old hero am I? I can only hide in this deep mountain and old forest, turning into grass and becoming a bandit. For a moment, Song Qingshu did not know how to console him. He subconsciously glanced at Xia Qingqing beside him, thinking that your Golden Snake Battalion's construction of spiritual civilization was indeed somewhat backward, making your subordinates unable to see the goal and hope. Xia Qingqing was bewildered by his glare. Just as she was about to ask in a low voice, Situ Boulay opened his mouth again. How can you be like Prince Song? Not making a move is nothing, but once you make a move, the world will be shocked. Gongzi compromised to compromise for the sake of the general interest. The magnificent feat of assassinating Kangxi really reignited the hot blood of the Han people all over the world. Song Qingshu laughed in embarrassment and said, in the end, the assassination this time still failed. Old hero Situ, please don't mention it again. Otherwise, Song Mao would really be too ashamed to show his face. Hey, Situ Boulay waved his hand and said, Prince Song, there is no need to be modest. The Tatar emperor is exceptionally cunning, not to mention that he has many martial art experts by his side like the clouds. In the end, the failure is pardonable. What this old man admires is Gongzi's heroic spirit of knowing perfectly well that it is impossible to do it. Even if there are millions of people, you will still forge ahead. Song Qingshu felt as if he was floating in the air from his fierce praise. Because he had a guilty conscience in his heart, he instead felt very embarrassed. He thought that this ancient man was indeed simple. He was just bluffing a bit, yet he unexpectedly had such an enthusiastic reaction. In fact, this was just Song Qingshu's misunderstanding. In this world, although there were many assassins who tried to assassinate the emperor, they usually did not cause much of a stir. Most of them were killed by the guards before they could even see the emperor's face. It was also very difficult to leave behind the names of the assassins. Song Qingshu was an assassin with such a high rank and official rank. It must be known that at that time, Song Qingshu was the most popular person in the imperial court after Wei Xiaobao. In the future, if he became a general or a minister, it would not be difficult for him to be conferred the title of duke or marquis. It could be said that he was about to achieve the glory that a man could achieve in his lifetime. It was precisely under such circumstances that Song Qingshu had chosen to abandon glory, splendor, wealth, and rank to take the risk of narrowly escaping death to assassinate Kangxi, and this had brought such a great shock to the people of the world. The Han people all over the world asked themselves if they had everything that Song Qingshu had, it would be very difficult for them to make the same decision. People had always been extremely respectful towards people and things that they couldn't do. In addition, the sect leader of the Five Lakes sect, Sang Fei Hong, had received a great kindness from Song Qing-shu in the past. He thought that after Song Qing-shu failed and died, he had the thought of repaying the kindness. Hence, he ordered his disciples to spread the news of Song Qing-shu's deeds all over the world. Of course, it was inevitable that some artistic manipulation was used. For all kinds of reasons, Song Qing-shu's reputation in the hearts of the ordinary people of Jianghu was a lot greater than he had imagined. Standing by Situ Buolei's side, Zheng Rou's beautiful eyes were shining with extraordinary splendor as she stared blankly at Song Qing-shu. In the past, although she had a peculiar feeling towards Song Qing-shu, when she thought that the other party was serving in the imperial court, she knew that the two of them were destined to be irreconcilable enemies. Consequently, she could only quietly hide that trace of affection in the deepest part of her heart, and spent all day in melancholy and depressed. Later on, when she heard the news that Song Qing-shu had assassinated Kangxi, all of a sudden she was in high spirits. Who would have thought that when she heard the news that Song Qing-shu's bones were ground and scattered into ashes by Kangxi's order, it was as if all the blood in her body was suddenly drained. She became despondent. When the Wanwu Pai people saw this, they sighed one after another. This was also why Siddhu knew that she was in love with Song Qing-shu. Later on, as Song Qing-shu wandered the Jianghu in the south, the news that he was still alive slowly spread to Wanwu Pai. At first, Zheng Rou thought it was a prank by her fellow disciples. But it was not until the news grew more and more that she realized that the man whom she missed day and night was really still alive. This time she saw with her own eyes Song Qing-shu standing in front of her. Her excitement was beyond words. Situ Buolei and Song Qing-shu exchanged conventional greetings for a while. Suddenly he changed the subject. Prince Song has come to Shandong this time. What is the purpose of your visit? Song Qing-shu and Xia Qingqing looked at each other. Noticing the smile in each other's eyes, Song Qing-shu hastily coughed to cover it up. Song Mao heard that the Manchurian Qing army is going to the south to encircle and annihilate the Golden Snake Camp. I came to see if I can contribute my meager strength. A trace of excitement appeared in Situ Buolei's eyes. He continued to ask, does Gongzi know that the Golden Snake Camp is inviting all the heroes under the heavens to re-elect the Golden Snake King? Song Qing-shu nodded. I have heard about it. Situ Buolei inquired further. Does Prince Song have the intention to participate in the contest? Song Qing-shu was silent for a moment before replying. Since Qianbei has asked sincerely, Zai Xiao also does not want to conceal anything. This time I indeed came to compete for the Golden Snake King. I am afraid you have no intention. Situ Buolei heaved a long sigh. He said with a smile, Prince Song, do you know that the heroes who are contesting for the Golden Snake King this time must be nominated by each of the mountains before they are qualified? Here it comes. Xia Qingqing could not help but look at Song Qing-shu. Song Qing-shu nodded. Yes, I have also just received the news. I wonder if Prince Song has found a mountain to recommend? Situ Buolei looked at him apprehensively. Song Qing-shu looked back at Xia Qingqing. He thought that Xia Qingqing's current status in the Golden Snake Camp was sensitive. It was not convenient to involve her in this. After hesitating for a moment, he shook his head and said, Not yet. A trace of joy appeared in Situ Buolei's eyes. What if this old man is willing to recommend Gongzi? Although he had already received the news from Xia Qingqing in advance, Song Qing-shu was still somewhat shocked. This nomination is of great importance. Qianbei and this humble one have only met once. Why would you recommend this humble one? Situ Buolei sighed and said, Last time on Mount Wanwu, Gongzi was fortunate to rescue me. This kindness is equivalent to giving me a new lease on life. This is the first reason. Gongzi assassinated the Qing Emperor Kangxi. You're truly one of my generation. This is the second reason. Gongzi's martial arts talent is well known throughout the world. This is the third reason. But Situ Buolei suddenly changed the subject. Although this old man has decided to recommend Gongzi, I also hope that Gongzi can agree to this old man's condition. Sure enough, There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. Song Qing-shu let out a wry smile. He thought to himself, "This time I am determined to win the Golden Snake King. As long as his condition is not too excessive, I will agree to it first." Having made up his mind, Song Qing-shu asked, "May I know what the condition is?" "Once I recommend Gongzi, regardless of the final success or failure. In other people's eyes, our Wanwu Pai's fate will be tied together with Gongzi's. In order to strengthen this alliance, this old man hopes that Gongzi can marry this disciple of mine." Situ Buole suddenly pulled Zheng Ro to his side, pointed to her, and said, Nanny?" 3 exclamations rang out at the same time. The first one was Zheng Ro. She was silently sizing up Song Qing-shu. Suddenly hearing her Shifu throw this heavy bomb, she was dumbfounded for a moment. In her heart, she was both happy and frightened. Happy because she had the opportunity to marry the man of her dreams, but frightened because all of this was too sudden, so sudden that it was somewhat unreal. The second exclamation came from Xia Qingqing. Previously, when Situ Buole came to her camp, he had quietly divulged some information. At that time, she was secretly delighted. Who would have thought that the other side actually had a condition? Moreover, Song Qing-shu must marry someone from Wanwu Pai as his wife. Although Xia Qingqing understood that with her identity, it was impossible for her to marry Song Qing-shu and could only be together with him in secret, understanding was one thing. Watching another woman marry him was another thing. Thinking of this, she could not help but glare at Song Qing-shu. "Humph, you still say that you have nothing to do with my youngest martial sister? If you have nothing to do with her, would she look at you like that? Would Situ Buole betroth her to you?" As a woman, with her sensitivity, Xia Qingqing had noticed the way Zheng Ro looked at Song Qing-shu just now. Her eyes were full of tenderness and adoration. It was absolutely not fake. The third exclamation came from Song Qing-shu. His first reaction was whether or not Situ Buole knew that he had taken liberties with Zheng Ro in the past. In this era where etiquette prevailed, he had indeed gone too far when he hugged her. But just because of this, he had to take responsibility for marrying her as his wife. Wasn't this a bit too melodramatic? However, this thought was quickly thrown to the back of his mind. After thinking about it carefully, he understood the reason why Situ Buole did this. In the past, there was a story about Lu Buwei being a rare commodity. Now, Situ Buole was recommending him to compete for the Golden Snake King, which was also a political investment. If he succeeded in the future, this would be a business with a small capital but a big profit. But in case he fell out with him at that time, Wanwu Pai would lose everything. As the helmsman of Wanwu Pai, naturally Situ Buole must take precautionary measures. But understanding was one thing, and agreeing was another. In history, there was no lack of ambitious and ruthless people who succeeded by marriage. Let's not talk about other things for the time being. Just take Lu Xiu, the son of the plain, for example. He was handsome, good at fighting, and could come and go freely among tens of thousands of troops. Moreover, it was said that he had magic attributes and could summon meteorites from outer space. He was such a perfect person. Later, in order to get the support of King Jinding and Hebei, he had to marry his niece, Guo Shengtong, in exchange for the 100,000 troops under King Jinding. But Song Qing-shu had his own pride. He was not willing to use marriage to complete his pursuit. Lu Xiu's choice made the perfect love of becoming an official and taking a wife as Yin Lihua imperfect. In the end, after he became the emperor, he could not make his most beloved wife, Yin Lihua, as his empress. Because of this, Lu Xiu hid a resentment in his heart. Later, he found an excuse to convict King Jinding of treason and took the opportunity to abolish Guo Shengtong's empress position. Finally, as he wished, he made Yin Lihua his empress. Regarding this, Song Qing-shu had always looked down on Lu Xiu's approach. In his opinion, he had promised to marry her, but in the end, he went back on his word and burned the bridge after crossing the river. Song Qing-shu knew that he absolutely could not do it. Zheng Ro was a good girl. Song Qing-shu knew that there was no love between him and her. It was impossible for him to marry her, and he could not harm her for life. Song Qing-shu struggled in his heart for a long time. Finally, he faintly sighed and tactfully declined. "Thank you, old hero Situ, for your kindness, but unfortunately, Song Mao is already married." Chapter 398. Zhou, I'll use you as a shield first. I have to give her face. Song Qing-shu understood that once he refused, no matter how tactful his reason was, it was very likely to offend Wang Wu faction. In the Return of the Condor Heroes, Yang Guo refused Guo Jing's marriage proposal and planted a seed of hatred in Guo Fu, so that later his right hand was chopped off by the other party. Judging from Zheng Rou's character, she shouldn't be able to do such a bold thing. But this time, if Song Qing-shu wanted to be the Golden Snake King, he still needed Wang Wu faction support. As the saying goes, even if business fails, benevolence and righteousness prevail. It's not that I don't want to marry your disciple, but I already have a wife, so everyone's face will look good. Because of this kind of force majeure, I can't marry someone from Wang Wu faction. Presumably, they can also understand. If you don't recommend me, Xia Qingqing will. When the time comes, it won't be difficult for them to agree to my qualifications. Hearing that Song Qing-shu was already married, Xia Qingqing looked at him with a complicated expression. She couldn't help but sigh at her own identity. For a moment, she became sensitive. On the other side, Zheng Rou had a shy face, nervously lowering her head and fiddling with the hem of her clothes. Hearing Song Qing-shu's answer, her pretty face turned pale. To the three people's complete surprise, when Situ Belay heard Song Qing-shu's words, not only was he not angry, his expression didn't even change a little bit. This old man also knows that with Rouer's identity, she naturally won't ask for the position of young master's official wife. She only asks to serve young master by his side. Hearing Situ Belay's answer, the three people in the room were shocked. Being from the Golden Snake camp, Xia Qingqing knew best how much Situ Belay treasured this female disciple. Zheng Rou was gentle and delicate, with a sweet and pretty appearance. Ever since Wang Wu faction joined the Golden Snake camp, her reputation had spread. Several other mountain chieftains came one after another to propose marriage for their sons, but Situ Belay refused all of them. Everyone guessed that he wanted to keep Zheng Rou as his own son. Now seeing Situ Belay present her to Song Qing-shu like a maidservant, how could Xia Qingqing not be shocked? Zheng Rou didn't expect her master to say that either. She froze on the spot, not knowing what to think. Song Qing-shu was dumbfounded. He had thought that by using Zhou Zhiruo as a shield, Situ Belay would definitely back off. Song Qing-shu had given him a way out of this embarrassing situation, so he took the opportunity to laugh it off, and the two of them had moved on from this topic. He had never expected that Situ Belay would actually give such an answer. She looked up at Zheng Rou, who was standing not far away. Her sweet face was faintly blushing, and she stood timidly by Situ Belay's side, making people feel a little pity for her. She's a cute girl, but I can't take all the women in the world, right? Feeling Xia Qingqing's gaze, Song Qing-shu felt a slight chill on his back. He hurriedly said, "Old hero Situ, Miss Zheng is gentle, virtuous, and beautiful. She deserves a husband who will wholeheartedly care for her. If she follows me, it will be too much for Miss Zheng. I hope old hero will reconsider. Prince Song, don't worry. As the saying goes, it's better to be a hero's concubine than a mediocre man's wife. Ro, I will definitely be willing to marry a hero like young master." Situ Belay laughed and turned to look at Zheng Rou. "Rower, don't you think so?" Zheng Rou was dumbfounded, thinking that her master was too much. How could a girl answer this kind of question? Feeling everyone's gaze, Zheng Rou's face turned red. She lowered her head and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito, "Rower will listen to master's arrangements." Song Qing-shu was about to find another reason to refuse when Xia Qingqing, who was beside him, quietly tugged on his sleeve and pouted her lips in Zheng Rou's direction. Puzzled, Song Qingshu followed her gaze and saw that Zheng Rou's eyes were glistening with tears. Her body was slightly trembling, and her hands were twisted together. Because she was using too much strength, her knuckles were slightly white. It was obvious that she was extremely nervous. Song Qingshu sighed in his heart. He knew that if he continued, he would hurt this innocent girl's heart. But how could he casually agree to this kind of thing? Song Qingshu's expression was uncertain. Just as he was hesitating, Xia Qingqing suddenly said, "Since old hero Situ is willing to do business, our young master will agree." Situ Boulay looked at her strangely. "Oh, may I know who this young lady is?" Before Song Qingshu could reply, Xia Qingqing replied, "I am the young master's trusted maid. Before we came up the mountain, the young master and I chatted a lot. He often mentioned Miss Zheng, praising how gentle and kind she was. Seeing her today, I can see that she really lives up to her reputation. Regarding old hero's proposal, young master has long been moved. It's just that he is worried that Miss Zheng will feel wronged." Hearing her words, Situ Boulay immediately beamed with joy. He laughed and said, "Not wronged, not wronged. If Zheng Xiong's spirit in heaven knows that his daughter can have a son-in-law like Prince Song, he will certainly be very gratified." The rest of the people in the room cupped their hands to express their congratulations. Zheng Rou, with a tender face, tenderly snorted, "I'm going to ignore you all." Then she hurriedly ran to the back hall. Things had come to this point. What else could Song Qingshu say? If he refused again, he would definitely hurt Wang Wupai's face. What was originally a beautiful thing would turn into a disaster. In the early days, it was not easy to plant this chess piece in Golden Snake Camp. How could he watch the chess game collapse now? Thinking of this, Song Qingshu couldn't help glaring at Xia Qingqing. Xia Qingqing had a complacent look on her face, but in her heart she thought, "What does it have to do with me? In any case, she is not your wife. Let your family's Zhou Zhirua bother her." If Song Qingshu could read Xia Qingqing's thoughts at this moment, perhaps he would vomit 3 liters of blood because of her black-bellied words. However, out of courtesy, he still had to formally reply to Situ Boulay, "Thank you very much for Qianbei's kindness. Later on, I will definitely treat Miss Zheng well. I won't let her suffer even the slightest bit of harm." "You still call me Qianbei?" Situ Boulay pretended to be displeased. "You and that won't do. Your martial arts skill is so high. I can't afford to be your Shifu. How about this? Rou's deceased father and I are sworn brothers. Later on, Gongzi can call me Shirshu." Song Qingshu broke out in cold sweat. He had no choice but to say, "I dare not obey. Later on, Shirshu, also don't call me Gongzi. Gongzi, I can't afford to." Situ Boulay laughed heartily. "In that case, from now on, this old man will call you Shu'er. You might as well call me nephew." Song Qingshu cursed incessantly. Thinking of the concubine Xiang Xiaolong, called Shu'er, in the Looking for Qin, she was raped first and then killed. Song Qingshu only felt a wave of nausea and quickly chatted with Situ Boulay. "Shu, when do you think this wedding will be held?" There's no hurry. Right now, there are internal and external troubles. Not only do we have to fight for the Golden Snake King, we also have to deal with the Manchurian Imperial Army. That's true." Situ Boulay had not finished speaking when he suddenly spoke. "Father, I don't quite agree with this point of view. Right now, everyone is living a life of licking blood on the edge of a knife. No one knows what will happen tomorrow. It's better to let the two get married as soon as possible. If they can give birth to a boy and a girl, everyone will have something to look forward to." Give birth? Song Qingshu was suddenly dumbfounded. There's no need to be so fast, right? He couldn't help but secretly groan. Originally, he still wanted to delay the marriage. Who knew that now the other party even put giving birth to a child on the agenda? That's right, Brother Song must not underestimate this issue of children. Since Brother Song has agreed to marry Junior's sister, we are naturally a family. In the future, Wang Wupai will naturally follow Brother Song's lead. Even if Brother Song meets with misfortune, we can still unite people's hearts with Brother Song's children. I won't mention that if Emperor Chongzhen's children had escaped from Beijing, there would not have been a split in the southern Ming dynasty later. Let's talk about recent matters. Why did the once flourishing Golden Snake camp fall apart today? Isn't it because after so many years that whatever Xia Qingqing did not leave behind a child for the Golden Snake King Yuan Qingji? If her belly was good enough and gave birth to a son, everyone would naturally regard her son as the trusted Golden Snake King, and there would not be such a situation where the various mountain chieftains were not convinced by each other and killed each other. Seeing that Xia Qingqing's face was getting darker and darker, Song Qingshu secretly laughed, thinking that you deserve to push me into the fire pit just now. Now the fire is burning you, right? Although it was somewhat satisfying to gloat, Song Qingshu did not dare to let Situ he continue speaking. In case he really made Xia Qingqing flip out, it would be difficult to clean up the mess. He quickly interrupted Situ he and said, "Now that the world is in chaos and disputes, if we get married so early, if your junior sister becomes a widow, how can I feel guilty?" Seeing that Situ he still wanted to say something, Song Qingshu quickly said, "At least wait until after this Golden Snake convention is over. Otherwise, if I fail to compete for the Golden Snake King, I won't have the face to face Miss Zheng and you." Situ Bule laughed and said, "Shu, what are you talking about? If you can't become the Golden Snake King, at worst we will leave the Golden Snake camp together and start our own. With your martial arts and intelligence, I think your achievements will not be inferior to the Golden Snake camp's motley crew." Situ Bule came from the world's famous and powerful Guaning Iron Cavalry. In the past, he was an existence that confronted the most elite 8 Banners cavalry head-on, so he naturally did not put the Golden Snake camp's group of bandits in his eyes. Seeing that Situ Bule had flattened Yuan Qingji's heart to nothing, Xia Qingqing suddenly felt indignant. She was about to argue with him when she suddenly remembered that she had decided to follow Song Qingshu from now on. If she spoke up for Yuan Qingji at this time, would he have any bad ideas about her? Worried about personal gains and losses, Xia Qingqing momentarily forgot to speak. Situ Bule and Song Qingshu chatted for a while, and suddenly said mysteriously, "There is no hurry to hold the wedding. Now, there is a person in the camp who wants to see Shu. See me?" Song Qingshu had a surprised look on his face. Seeing Situ Bule was so serious about this matter, he could not help but ask curiously, "I wonder who wants to see me?" "This." Situ Bule hesitantly glanced at Xia Qingqing, but he still shook his head and said, "You will know when you see him yourself." Song Qingshu immediately sank into contemplation. Who else in Wang Wu Pai was worthy of Situ Bule being so serious? It should not be someone from the inside. Situ Bule used to be Wu Sangui's subordinate. Could it be that Wu Sangui's envoy was also here? Song Qingshu shook his head slightly and very quickly drove this thought out of his mind. Situ Bule had always deeply hated Wu Sangui's act of betraying his country. How could it be possible that Situ Bule was connected to him? But if it was not Wu Sangui's people, then who could it be? Xia Qingqing was obviously very surprised. She stood up and said to Song Qingshu, "I will go with you." Obviously, she was worried that there was some kind of trick involved. Situ Bule promptly waved his hand and said, you can't. That person has already made it clear that he will only see Shu alone. He will not see anyone else." Chapter 399. Song Qingshu felt that with Situ Bule's temperament, he would not harm him. Moreover, with his present martial arts skill, ordinary ambushes and traps would not be able to harm him. Later on, he would raise his spirit and be on guard in secret. Since that's the case, I'll go and see him. Song Qingshu gave Xia Qingqing a look, signaling her to be patient. With my martial arts skills, they shouldn't be able to trap me. You, on the other hand, be careful. If you feel something is wrong, find a chance to escape. When Song Qingshu left the hall with Situ Bule, he secretly used secret voice sending to Xia Qingqing. Okay, be careful. Xia Qingqing moved her mouth and said silently. Song Qingshu followed behind Situ Bule, making 7, 8 turns in the stronghold. Finding an opportunity, he approached Situ Bule and said in a low voice, "Uncle Situ, you see, there are no outsiders here, can you quietly tell me who actually wants to see me? Situbule looked embarrassed. Sure, I promise not to reveal that person's identity. Anyway, you'll see him soon. Then at least give me a hint. Uncle, you're so serious. It must be an important person. What if I'm caught off guard and lose my composure? Song Qing-shu said anxiously. He thought that since he had agreed to marry Zheng Ro, he and Situbule were on the same side. He didn't expect that Situbule would be so rigid and not reveal anything. Situbule looked a bit moved. Sure. Do you know why I didn't feel wronged when I betrothed Ro to you as a concubine? Song Qing-shu was dumbfounded. He didn't expect Situbule to suddenly mention this matter. For a moment, he didn't know how to answer. He couldn't tell him that he was famous in the world and had excellent martial arts skills, so it wasn't wrong for Zheng Ro to be his concubine. Situbule heaved a sigh and said, Shu, although you are well-versed in both the pen and the sword, and are the #1 character in the world, but I have watched her grow up since she was a child, and I have always treated her as my own daughter. Originally, even if I had to throw away my old face, I still wanted to fight for the position of Ro-er's legal wife. But now that I know that the nobleman is also yours with Ro-er's status, how would I dare to compete with her? But it's not a disgrace to Ro-er to be able to work with her husband. What was going on? Song Qing-shu was confused. So you gave Zheng Ro to me for that person's sake? He thought. But is Zhou Jiruo of high status? Song Qing-shu's mind raced. He suddenly recalled a rumor he had read on the internet in his previous life. The name Zhou Jiruo was elegant and refined. She was definitely not someone an ordinary fisherman could marry. Therefore, people were more willing to believe that Zhou Zhuo was the orphan of Zhou Zhuang, the leader of the White Lotus Army. How did the Wanwu faction get involved with the White Lotus cult? Song Qing-shu was bewildered. Why did Zhou Jiruo take the initiative to see me this time? No, with Zhou Jiruo's temperament, she shouldn't be looking for me like this. But if it wasn't her, who could it be? Sure, that person is in the front yard. I won't go in with you. Situbule suddenly stopped and pointed to a quiet courtyard in front of him. Okay. Song Qing-shu absent-mindedly responded and walked forward step by step. His whole body was full of vigilance. Why was there no light in the room? After entering the courtyard, Song Qing-shu was about to turn around and ask Situbule. But when he turned around, Situbule was no longer in the same place. Song Qing-shu's heart sank. Could it be that Situbule really wants to plot against me? With a heavy snort, Song Qing-shu was too lazy to hide his tracks. He no longer timidly approached. Instead, he said in a clear voice, Since your excellency has summoned Song Mao, please show yourself. There was still no sound in the room. Song Qing-shu closed his eyes and used his spiritual consciousness to explore the room. He felt that there was no ambush in the room, only one person. However, this person's breathing was long and his body was light. He was definitely an expert among experts. Humph! Even if the other party's martial arts were very high, it was impossible for him to deal with him alone. Since your excellency doesn't want to come out, then I will come in by myself. Song Qing-shu smiled and strode forward to push the door open. For a moment, he was not used to the darkness in the room. Song Qing-shu subconsciously closed his eyes. Suddenly, behind the door, a dense sword chi pierced towards him. Song Qing-shu understood the other party's plan. He knew that the other party wanted to take the opportunity to force him into the room, and then take advantage of the fact that he was not used to the darkness to kill him. Unfortunately, with Song Qing-shu's current realm, he did not only use his eyes to look at his enemies. His spiritual consciousness covered the surrounding area of dozens of feet at all times. Even a mosquito could not escape from his Qi-ji, let alone a living person. So what? Song Qing-shu smiled, closed his eyes, and took a light step into the room. In the eyes of the person in the dark, Song Qing-shu had clearly only taken a small step, but his whole body had moved more than 10 feet. The sword that was full of confidence suddenly pierced the air. It was very uncomfortable. You are done. It is my turn. Song Qing-shu snorted and poked at the other party with a finger. With Song Qing-shu's current realm, Although it was just an ordinary finger, he accurately calculated the time when the other party's old strength had been exhausted and the new strength had not been recovered. Song Qingshu sealed off all the space for the other party to dodge. Ah, the person in the dark moaned. Her waist seemed to be boneless, and her whole body fell backward in the air. Is it a woman? Hearing the other party's voice, Song Qingshu was shocked. He did not expect the other party to be so flexible. Naturally, she dodged his finger. Miss, what hatred do you have with Song Mao? Why are your attacks so fatal? Song Qingshu really did not want to fight with a woman. He put his hands behind his back and asked while dodging the other party's fierce attacks. You destroyed my most precious thing, and you still have the nerve to ask me? The woman in the dark changed her tone on purpose and answered in a rough voice. Most precious thing? Song Qingshu's first thought was that Zhou Zhuo came to seek revenge, but then he shook his head. She did not have to deliberately hide her identity. So who else could it be? The most precious thing? Could it be that her husband or son was killed by me? Song Qingshu went through the people who had died in his hands and his mind, and he could not help but shake his head in distress. He had always disliked killing. After coming to this chaotic world, he had killed only a few people. He really could not think of which family this woman could be. Wei Xiaobao. Impossible. Looking at the figure, it could not be Shuang Er, Chief Sai of Prince Bao's mansion. It was also impossible. Compared to this woman, his martial arts was not even worthy to carry her shoes. How could they be related? Priest Wuchen of the Red Flower Society? With his age, he was too old to be this woman's father. It could not be that she was seeking revenge for Feng Shifan, right? The news could not have spread so fast. Song Qingshu thought about it until his head was swollen, but he still had no clue. Forget it. He would naturally know her identity when he captured her. As soon as he thought about it, Song Qingshu changed his defensive posture and began to attack. I had something to do a few days ago, so I will resume normal updates tomorrow. Chapter 400. Unexpectedly, Song Qingshu's successive moves were all cleverly dodged by her, and she even took the opportunity to attack a few times. This lightness skill is a little familiar. While Song Qingshu was surprised, he was even more impressed by the depth of the opponent's skills, which were comparable to the 5 greats of the Central Plains. Thinking that the opponent was a woman, Song Qingshu was even more puzzled. Was there really a woman with such a high level of martial arts in the world? He quickly filtered through the famous female experts in Jianghu in his mind. Dongfang Muxue? Definitely not Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao. That old lowly's body couldn't be so good. That old witchly Qiu Shui? She is indeed an expert swordsman, but I have no enmity with her, so she shouldn't come looking for me. Could it be that she has fallen for my beauty? Song Qingshu was instantly shocked. There was also a female swordsman expert, Lin Chaoying. He had abducted her too. Oh no, temporarily a female disciple. But she didn't have a fetish for disciples, so she shouldn't come looking for him. Song Qingshu quickly dispelled this speculation. He had just seen Xiao Long Nu's pure heart of jade maiden swordsmanship not long ago, and this woman's swordsmanship was completely different. As Song Qingshu's mind went wild, his body finally stopped for a moment. Although the time was short, it was more than enough for a top expert. In the darkness, the girl's face lit up. She immediately moved forward and stabbed with her sword. But for some reason, when the tip of the sword was about to touch Song Qingshu's body, it suddenly slowed down and avoided Song Qingshu's vital parts. Good move. Song Qingshu smiled slightly. With this woman's lightness, skill, and cultivation, it was not easy to defeat her in a short period of time, let alone capture her. He was also worried that she would run away in the darkness, so he decided to purposely show an opening to lure her into taking him lightly. Song Qingshu's feet slightly twisted, and his whole body suddenly moved to the side. In the darkness, the girl's sword thrust missed and instead exposed her side to him. The young girl's beautiful face immediately paled. Just as she was about to use her qinggong to pull away from Song Qingshu, she felt her waist go numb. Her whole body suddenly fell into Song Qingshu's arms. It wasn't easy for me to trick you. How can I let you escape just like that? Song Qing smiled proudly. Suddenly, he smelled the elegant fragrance of the woman in his arms. He felt her body soften a little, and his heart swayed. If it was me in the past, I would definitely pretend that I didn't mean it and take the opportunity to touch you. Song Qing smiled bitterly and shook his head. He put his hand on her shoulder and placed her on the chair. Then he took out a match and lit the oil lamp in the room. Song Qing was stunned to see a pretty face with a hint of embarrassment. Ninth Princess, why are you here? Why don't you quickly release my acupoints? Zhu Yui said snappily. Okay. Song Qing was about to release her acupoints. Suddenly, he retracted his finger with a strange look. You were about to kill me just now. Why should I release your acupoints? Zhu Yui turned her face to the side. I just want to see how good your kung fu is. Your kung fu is so good that I can't kill you. Really? Song Qing said thoughtfully. But just now you saw the flaw that I deliberately exposed. I didn't hesitate to use my sword. No. Zhu Yui suddenly became anxious. I deliberately moved the tip of my sword away because I was afraid that I would really hurt you. Oh. Song Qing showed a meaningful smile. Zhu Yui's pretty face blushed for no reason. What are you laughing at? She said in a delicate voice. Shouldn't I laugh at an old friend? Song Qing said. Who is your old friend? Zhu Yui said discontentedly. A day as husband and wife means 100 days of love. You can't be so heartless. Now that Song Qing thought about it, no wonder she said that he took away her most precious thing when he came in. He thought it was her husband and children, but he didn't expect it to be that. I don't like you to be so frivolous. I always feel like a vagabond. Zhu Yui slightly frowned. You were going to say like a pervert, right? Song Qing laughed. Actually, it's not that I'm frivolous. It's just that the people in your world are too serious. You speak as if you don't belong to this world. Zhu Yui rolled her eyes at him. Of course I don't. Song Qing smiled. I can't be bothered to listen to your nonsense. Zhu Yui did not take it seriously. Instead, she glared at Song Qing and said, Are you going to seal my acupoints like this forever? This was the world. Often, no one was willing to believe the truth, but it was easier to gain trust if you lied. Song Qing shook his head and smiled bitterly. He raised his hand, and a wisp of wind shot at Zhu Yui's body and unsealed her acupoints. Ninth Princess, didn't you go back to the western region? Why are you here? Song Qing asked curiously. Zhu Yui shook her head and said lightly, I have left the Ming dynasty. Left? Song Qing did not react for a moment. I have resigned from the position of the saintess of the Ming dynasty to Zhang Jiaozhu, and I will not go back in the future. Zhu Yui explained. You have left the Ming dynasty? Song Qing was pleasantly surprised. In the past, when he thought of her staying under Zhang Wuji, he was extremely unhappy. Did Zhang Wuji agree to let you go? Zhang Jiaozhu is a modest gentleman, and we are allies. Why doesn't he agree to let me go? Zhu Yui asked curiously. Modest gentleman? He may have been one before, but since the lion slaying convention, he is not. Song Qing sneered. I have just fought with him not long ago. You have fought. Zhu Yui's beautiful eyes bloomed with a glimmer of light. Who won? Aren't you curious about why we fought? Song Qing looked at her expectant eyes and was suddenly speechless. You men always have a reason to fight. Zhu Yui smiled and shook her head. Then do you know why I know the cultivation method that I used to save you last time? Seeing her calm look, Song Qing decided to give her a strong dose of medicine. Sure enough, when Zhu Yui recalled the embarrassing scene in the tent, her snow-white face immediately turned red, and she could not help but spit. Although I know where you learned that dirty cultivation method. This is an orthodox Buddhist cultivation method, not a dirty cultivation method. Song Qing grumbled discontentedly. Seeing Zhu Yui frowning, he hurriedly said, The reason why I learned this cultivation method is because of Zhang Wuji. Ah, Zhu Yui exclaimed, and the expression on her face suddenly became very interesting. It's not what you think. Song Qing looked at him speechlessly and then told him about his sneak attack on Blackwood Cliff, and the 9 true qi in his body was scattered. At that time, all my true qi was scattered by his 9-yang true qi. In order to treat my injuries, there was an expert who directed me to the Tibetan tantric sect to seek treatment. I didn't know it was that kind of cultivation method. Song Qingshu said gloomily. How could Zhang Jiaozhu act so sneakily? After listening to Song Qingshu's story, Zhu Yui revealed a thoughtful expression. Chapter 4:01. If it was in the past, I would say that time will prove everything, but now, there is someone else who can prove it. Song Qingshu said. Who? Zhu Yaoyao still found it hard to believe when she first heard about Zhang Wuji's completely different side. On the way to the Golden Snake Battalion, I happened to fight with Zhang Wuji again. The reason was that I ran into him interrogating Miao Renfeng about the whereabouts of the Chuang King's treasure. Song Qingshu replied, Miao Renfeng, what is her relationship with the 4 imperial guards of the Chuang King? Zhu Yaoyao said hatefully. Years ago, she felt that she had some achievements in martial arts. She wanted to share her father's burden, so she quietly sneaked into Li Zicheng's military camp and tried to assassinate him. As a result, she encountered several old men with excellent martial arts. Fortunately, her lightness skill was excellent, so she escaped with her life. At that time, she found out that those old men were Li Zicheng's famous 4 imperial guards, Miao Hu, Tian Fan. Miao Renfeng is the descendant of the imperial guards surnamed Miao. Song Qingshu cursed inwardly. Zhu Yaoyao and Li Zicheng had a blood feud, so she hated Miao Renfeng as well. What if she knew Miao Ruolin and Icy Snow's identity and wanted to kill them? What about the Chuang King's treasure? Zhu Yaoyao did not continue to pursue Miao Renfeng's question. Song Qingshu told her about how the 4 imperial guards hid Li Zicheng's wealth and treasures in order to make a comeback. Zhu Yaoyao sneered. That year, my father took out all the silver in the palace treasury to pay for the army. He was such a prideful person that he could not even bear to change his dragon robe. He was also worried that he would be ridiculed by the ministers, so he could only sit upright and cover up the holes. When news came from the capital that Li Zicheng was about to attack, my father called on all the court officials to donate money to pay for the army. In the end, there were only a few tens of thousands of taels of silver. Which of these people does not have millions of assets? They had a good plan. Anyway, when Li Zicheng became the new emperor, they would continue to be their ministers and continue to enjoy their wealth. Naturally, they would not be willing to donate anything. As a result, when Li Zicheng attacked Beijing, unlike my Fu Huang who begged them, he directly killed them all and sent troops to plunder all the gold, silver, and valuables in their homes. Humph! Although I hate the intruders to the bone, this matter is very satisfying for me. Seeing that Zhu Xiaoyi was getting more and more emotional as she spoke, with tears in her eyes, Song Qingshu knew that she was thinking of her father who had died for the country. He could not help but sigh faintly. He reached out to hug her and gently patted her shoulder to comfort her. Zhu Yu's body stiffened at first, but she did not struggle. Instead, she leaned her head on Song Qingshu's shoulder and sobbed quietly. After a long time, Zhu Yu raised her head with red eyes. She gently pushed Song Qingshu aside and wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes with her jade-like fingers. She looked at him and said with a somewhat unnatural expression, I have heard a little about the roaming king's treasure, but I thought it was just an illusory rumor. The roaming king's treasure does exist. Otherwise, Zhang Wuji would not have traveled thousands of miles to the Central Plains to interrogate Miao Renfeng. Song Qingshu roughly explained what happened that day. The witness you mentioned is Miao Renfeng's daughter? Where is she now? Zhu Yu suddenly asked. Song Qingshu was startled by her. He hastily asked, What do you want to do? Noticing Song Qingshu's intense reaction, Zhu Yu was startled at first, but she quickly understood his concern. She could not help but burst into laughter. Do you think I want to kill her? She asked. Song Qingshu nodded awkwardly. You hate Li Zicheng so much, and Ruolin is the descendant of the 4 great imperial guards. As the saying goes, every debt has its debtor. The 4 great imperial guards are just serving their masters, so why would I vent my anger on their descendants? Zhu Yu suddenly looked at him with hidden bitterness. Am I such a vicious woman in your heart? Of course not. Song Qingshu broke out in a cold sweat and quickly changed the topic. Ruolin is now in an inn in the nearby town. You can ask her whenever you want. Zhu Yu shook her head. Why would I ask her? Song Qingshu was startled. He subconsciously replied, Isn't it to verify what happened that day? Zhu Yu suddenly blushed and glared at him snappily. What is your relationship with me? How could I believe Zhang Wuji and suspect you? Song Qingshu was stunned at first, but then he said with great joy, Ninth Princess, you. A trace of shyness appeared on Zhu Yu's face. She lowered her head, pursed her lips, and said softly, From now on, you can call me a Jiu. Happiness came too suddenly. Song Qingshu did not seem to believe it and reached out to hug her. Unexpectedly, Zhu Yu did not struggle at all and fell into his arms shyly. Song Qingshu pinched his thigh in disbelief. A storm surged in his heart. Could it be that I also have the aura of a male protagonist? Or with some kind of stallion halo? At this moment, tears streamed down Song Qingshu's cheeks. Ever since he came to this world, he often had to use all means to get close to the women who moved his heart. Sometimes it would even cause the women to hate him to the bone. He had never met a woman who willingly came to him like Zhu Yaoyao. Not to mention, with her peerless beauty, noble identity, and powerful martial arts, ordinary women could not compare to her. In fact, this was the reason why Song Qingshu's ideas had not completely changed. In his previous life, a woman's chastity was not so important, and one-night stands were very common. Therefore, after using that method to treat Zhu Yu's injury last time, Song Qingshu did not expect anything more. He felt that it was an urgent matter. However, Zhu Yu was different from him. As a native of this world and a princess of a country, the concept of being faithful to one man was deeply rooted in her bones. Although she was caught off guard at that time, after she left, she calmed down and knew that she could not marry anyone else. What's more, Song Qingshu's appearance and martial arts were all top-notch. Zhu Yu had a good impression of him when they met several times before. At first, she was a little hesitant. Knowing that she would be rushing to overthrow the Qin court for the rest of her life, she was worried that she would drag Song Qingshu down. Later, when she heard the news that he had assassinated Kangxi, Zhu Yu made up her mind. Therefore, she firmly refused Zhang Wuji's invitation to stay, resigned from the position of Holy Maiden of the Ming Dynasty, and returned to the Central Plains from the western regions. When she heard the news that the Golden Snake Camp was re-electing a new Golden Snake King, Zhu Yu was moved. She wanted to help her lover win, so she contacted the former Ming General Situ Buolei. If it were not for Zhu Yu, no matter how much Situ Buolei appreciated Song Qingshu, he would not have given away a female disciple as soon as they met. It was also Zhu Yu's idea to let Zheng Rou marry Song Qingshu. She understood that the Ming dynasty had fallen, and she could not completely rely on some illusory name of loyalty to win over her subordinates. Therefore, she planned to completely tie Situ Buolei to the same chariot. Situ Buolei was originally optimistic about Song Qingshu, so he naturally promised to marry Zheng Rou to Situ Buolei. This made Zhu Yu anxious, so she had to hesitantly hint about her relationship with Song Qingshu. Situ Buolei was an experienced man, so how could he not understand that with his relationship with Zheng Rou's father and his love for Zheng Rou for so many years, there was no reason for him to let Zheng Rou be someone else's concubine. But if he could share the same husband with the Ming dynasty's princess, Situ Buolei was happy for his old friend. After being stunned for a moment, he also agreed. That was why the incident in the hall just now happened. Chapter 402. So, just now, when Situ Buolei betrothed Miss Zheng to me, it was also because of you? Song Qingshu recalled the situation just now, as well as Situ Buolei's ambiguous words, and finally came to a realization. I have seen Miss Zheng. She is delicate and charming, and has a gentle personality. Don't you like her? Zhu and I looked at him with some puzzlement. It's not that I don't like her, it's just... Song Qingshu hemmed and hawed for a long time, unable to think of what to say. Don't you think it's like a business deal? Zhu Yanai pursed her lips and smiled. Yes. Song Qing nodded gloomily. For so many years, Situ Boulay has always been loyal to the Great Ming. I have to give him some hope, so I thought of a marriage plan. Of course, I can't marry his son, so I have to sacrifice you. Zhu Yanai smiled mischievously. What's more, Miss Sung admires you. It's not a secret in Wan Wu Pai. So when Situ Boulay heard my idea, he naturally agreed. Song Qing pretended to be angry and said, You sold me out just like that? Zhu Yanai snappily said, He gave you power, gave you beautiful women, and even prepared a dowry for you. Where else can you find such a good thing? Song Qing was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, This dowry is not enough. Not enough? Zhu Yanai looked at him in surprise. Wan Wu Pai has thousands of elite Guaning cavalry. This dowry is not enough? Of course it's enough for Miss Zhang's dowry. Song Qing deliberately paused for a moment, making Zhu Yanai slightly flustered. But Ajia, what about your dowry? Zhu Yanai's face suddenly turned red, her whole body standing there ashamed. After a while she muttered, I didn't ask you for a dowry. Song Qing laughed, reached out, and pulled Zhu Yanai to the bedside. I have a ready-made dowry here. I guarantee you will be satisfied. Seeing that Song Qing was pulling her to the bedside, Zhu Xiaoqiang suddenly thought of something else. Recalling the charming scene in the tent that day, her whole body became a little weak. She said rather plaintively, You were clearly bullying me. It's not a betrothal gift. Subconsciously, Zhu Yu recalled that during their dual cultivation, Song Qing had passed half of his power to her, and she thought that he was going to pass his power to her through the same method. Song Qing was slightly stunned when he saw the shy look in Zhu Xiaoxiao's eyes. Then he realized that she had misunderstood and explained, The betrothal gift I'm talking about is not what you're thinking. Oh, huh? Zhu Yaoyao looked up and saw Song Qing's serious look. She also realized that she was imagining things, and she was immediately embarrassed. Ajio, what's your greatest wish? Song Qing sat on the bed and patted the seat next to him, motioning for her to sit down. Zhu Yaoyao hesitated for a moment, but she still sat down. However, she deliberately kept a distance from Song Qing. Naturally, it's to overthrow the Manchurian Qing and restore the Ming dynasty. Zhu Yaoyao said the first sentence loudly, but her voice subconsciously lowered when she said the second sentence. After traveling the world for so many years, how could she not know that the Ming dynasty's fate had come to an end? Song Qing said with a smile, Ah, Jiao, have you heard that I tried to assassinate Kangxi not long ago? Yes. Zhu Yaoyao nodded and then sighed regretfully. If I had been by your side at that time, with our combined strength, that dog Emperor Kangxi would definitely not have been able to escape. Song Qing held back his laughter and snorted. Who asked you to be so cruel to leave me? Zhu Yaoyao blushed and said softly, At that time, you suddenly did that kind of thing to me. Although I know you did it to save me, how could I, a girl, stay and face you? Now you feel ashamed? Song Qing looked straight at her. Do you have to make me so embarrassed? Zhu Yaoyao looked at him bitterly. Song Qing quickly begged for mercy. Well, I won't tease you. I'll tell you a secret. During that assassination, Kangxi was actually killed by me. Ah, Zhu Yaoyao exclaimed and looked straight at him. What did you say? With your skills, how could you not hear it clearly? Song Qing shrugged helplessly. How could it be possible? Zhu Yaoyao finally came to her senses. Isn't Kangxi still in the Forbidden City? This time, he sent his army to besiege the Golden Snake Camp. Song Qing suddenly hesitated. He looked at her and asked, Jiao, can I really trust you? It was no wonder that he was cautious. This matter was too important. If the news leaked out, all his plans would be ruined. Dongfang Muxue, who was seriously injured now, would be in danger. After all, he and Zhu Yuehua had only had sex once. Oh no, one night on the bed. Although they appreciated each other before, there was no emotional foundation. This time, she suddenly appeared and said that she would marry no one but him, which made Song Qing fall into a dream. In a trance, he felt that it was unreal. After all, this was the cheap in Song Qing subconscious. He was used to spending a lot of effort to fight for a woman, but he was not at ease with the one who threw herself at him. What do you mean? Zhu Yaoyao trembled, and her face became extremely pale. I have to try to be sure. Song Qingshu reached out his hand to hook her smooth chin and slowly moved his lips to hers. Zhu Yaoyao looked at him quietly until the two were about to touch. She suddenly turned her face away, leaving only the side of her face for him. Song Qingshu did not care. He slightly exerted force and pulled her head back. This time, he did not give her a chance and kissed her. Zhu Yaoyao struggled desperately, but with Song Qingshu's current strength, how could she break free? She let out a helpless whimper. Song Qingshu quickly withdrew, touched his tongue, and said gloomily, "Are you a dog?" Zhu Yaoyao snorted and turned her head to the side. She was unwilling to answer him, but she felt extremely miserable in her heart. She had come all the way back to the Central Plains and had already decided to entrust her life to him. But he looked down on her like this. Looking at Zhu Yaoyao's frosty and heartbroken expression, Song Qingshu smiled and said, "It's this familiar feeling." He could not help but curse himself as a cheap wretch in his heart and quickly apologized to Zhu Yaoyao. "Ajio, the main thing is that everything happened too suddenly. I still feel like I'm in a dream to get your favor. And that matter is too important. If it is leaked, I will die without a burial place." Hearing Song Qingshu's serious words, Zhu Yaoyao finally turned her head and looked at him in confusion. Song Qingshu told her about how he had assassinated Kangxi and then sent troops to besiege Shandong and planned to take the opportunity to enter the Golden Snake Camp. Listening to his story, Zhu Yaoyao seemed to be dumbfounded. She stood there in a daze until Song Qingshu finished speaking. She came to her senses and grabbed his arm in surprise and joy. "Brother Song, is what you said true? If I wanted to deceive you, would I use such an absurd lie to deceive you?" Song Qingshu said with a wry smile. Zhu Meng subconsciously believed him, because if Song Qingshu really wanted to deceive her, he wouldn't use such an absurd and flawed lie. She suddenly stood up and trembled. Obviously, she was extremely excited in her heart, and she looked at Song Qingshu with a pair of burning eyes. "I assassinated the Tatar emperor and will soon overthrow the Manchurian Qing dynasty. I wonder if this is enough to be the betrothal gift for the ninth princess?" Song Qingshu looked at her with a playful expression. The blush on Zhu Yaoyao's face disappeared in a flash. She sat down next to him again and said in a low voice, "It's more than enough." Song Qingshu put his arm around her slender waist and said in her ear, "Then can I ask what your dowry is? Where can I find the corresponding dowry?" Zhu Yaoyao's voice sounded like she was about to cry, but her heart was full of sweetness. "Father, my future husband has avenged the Ming dynasty." Song Qingshu originally just wanted to tease her, but he didn't expect that when he was so close to her and smelled the delicate fragrance from her body, his heart couldn't help but sway, and he took the opportunity to kiss her cheek. Feeling his action, Zhu Yaoyao's body trembled, but she didn't have the slightest thought of refusing. She clenched the hem of her skirt tightly and sat there shyly, letting the man next to her do whatever he wanted to her. However, when Song Qingshu's hand reached for her belt, Zhu Yaoyao subconsciously grabbed his hand. But then she remembered that she was already his woman, so she hesitated for a moment and gently let go of her hand. After this interruption, Song Qingshu suddenly came to his senses and cursed himself inwardly for being a bastard. Right now, Xia Qingqing was outside worrying about him, but he was here enjoying the warmth and tenderness of a woman. Feeling that Song Qingshu suddenly stopped moving, Zhu Yaoyao opened her eyes and looked at him in confusion. Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly and said, "There was a companion who went up the mountain with me just now. I'm afraid she's worried now." Zhu Yaoyao pursed her lips and smiled. Big Brother Song's companion should be a girl, right? Song Qingshu became even more embarrassed and nodded. "Actually, you also know her." "I know her too." Zhu Yaoyao couldn't help but be surprised. "Who is it?" At this moment, there was a sudden noise outside, and soon Situ Bule's voice rang out from outside the courtyard. "Princess, Prince Song's companion has been waiting for a long time, but he hasn't returned. She insisted on coming here to check and fought with my man. Song Qingshu secretly broke out in a cold sweat. Xia Qingqing was really tough, but he was extremely moved. He had clearly told her to leave first if the situation was not good, but he didn't expect that she would come to find him regardless of the danger. Zhu Yaoyao glared at him reproachfully and hurriedly said in a clear voice, "General Sidu, let the girl come in." Yes. Although the great Ming dynasty had fallen, Situ Boulay still strictly followed the etiquette of subject. Song Qingshu couldn't help it either. His figure paused and flashed out, meeting up with Xia Qingqing, who had rushed over. "Big brother Song, you're okay." Xia Qingqing pulled his arm in surprise and looked him up and down. "Your big brother Song's martial arts are so good. How could something happen to him?" "But didn't I tell you that if something really happened, you should take the opportunity to go down the mountain first? It's so dangerous for you." Song Qingshu couldn't help but glare at Xia Qingqing. "I was worried about you." Xia Qingqing giggled and couldn't help but act like a spoiled child. "By the way, who is that mysterious person? You also know that person. You can go and see for yourself," Song Qingshu said with a strange expression. Updating at a tortoise speed, he actually wrote 400 chapters. "I finally believe that in the tortoise and rabbit race, the tortoise can run faster than the rabbit." Chapter 403. Why do you have such a strange reaction? Who is that man? Xia Qingqing kept asking questions along the way, but Song Qingshu just smiled and said nothing. He only answered her, "You'll know when you see him." Xia Qingqing was even more curious. She followed Song Qingshu into the room. When she saw Zhu Yui, she exclaimed, "Jiao!" At this moment, she finally understood why Song Qingshu's expression was so strange. The relationship between her and Zhu Yui could only be described in a few words. "This voice is..." Zhu Yui was a little hesitant. Looking at the familiar figure in front of her, she also looked a little embarrassed. "Qingqing?" In front of an acquaintance, Xia Qingqing naturally didn't need to cover her face anymore. Taking off the veil on her face, Song Qingshu found that the two women were looking at each other, and the room fell into a strange atmosphere. Song Qingshu coughed lightly, breaking the silence in the room. Don't you have anything to ask?" "Jiao, what are you doing?" Xia Qingqing finally couldn't help asking. "Qingqing, you and him?" At the same time, Zhu Yui also asked in unison. Xia Qingqing blushed. As Mrs. Yuan, she had an affair with Song Qingshu. Of course, it was a little embarrassing to face an old acquaintance. Moreover, Jiao was her former rival in love. In order to compete for Yuan Qingji, she had been very jealous. Thinking of her willfulness when she was young, Xia Qingqing was even more embarrassed. In the end, Song Qingshu couldn't let Xia Qingqing be despised by Jiao because of secular ethics. He quickly told Zhu Yui about how Xia Qingqing went to the Forbidden City alone to assassinate Kangxi in order to avenge Yuan Qingji, and how she was saved by him. Later, in order to avenge Yuan Qingji, she didn't hesitate to sneak into Prince Bao's mansion. Xia Qingqing finally came to her senses. Ashamed and embarrassed, she hurriedly interrupted him. "Brother Song, don't say it." At first, Zhu Yu had never thought that Xia Qingqing would do something to betray Yuan Qingji. She thought that Song Qingshu had used some dirty tricks to bully her. Hearing his words, she finally felt relieved and sighed faintly. "Qingqing, in terms of feelings for brother Yuan, I can't compare with you." Originally, she was also prepared to enter the capital to assassinate Kangxi. Unfortunately, she was still burdened by the national enmity. She understood that if she entered the capital to assassinate Kangxi, she would die without a sound. The key point was that the hope of success was very slim. In order to one day kill Li Zicheng and Wu Sangui, as well as overthrow the Manchurian Qing, she had no choice but to suppress her desire to avenge Yuan Qingji. She rushed about in Jianghu, trying to gather her forces in order to restore the great Ming's rivers and mountains. She carried too many things on her shoulders. In the end, she could not compare to Xia Qingqing's wholehearted feelings for Yuan Qingji. Although Xia Qingqing understood that Zhu Yu was expressing her feelings, at this moment, she had already slept with Song Qingshu. Hearing this kind of praise from Zhu Yu, she felt uncomfortable. Suddenly, she noticed that Zhu Yu was flirting with Song Qingshu, so she asked suspiciously, Audiobook, you and Brother Song? This time, it was Zhu Yu's turn to be embarrassed. She was born in the royal family, so she thought it was normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. She was also prepared to share the same husband with other women, such as Zheng Ro, who could not arouse her feelings. However, Xia Qingqing also slept with Song Qingshu. In the past, when she was fighting for Yuan Qingji, she was depressed. Was history going to repeat itself? This time, Zhu Yu was not going to give in. Moreover, she had already promised to marry Song Qingshu. How could she marry another man? The natural magnanimity of the royal family helped her recover quickly. She smiled and said, Qingqing, I didn't expect that in the end, we couldn't escape the fate of sharing the same husband. Xia Qingqing blushed. Naturally, she knew that Zhu Yu was referring to the time when the two of them were jealous of each other. Recalling the past, the two of them fell in love with another man at the same time, and Xia Qingqing could not help but sigh. Audiobook, this time, I won't fight with you. Xia Qingqing sighed faintly. Song Qingshu's expression changed, and Zhu Yu was also shocked. She hurriedly pulled her hand and said, Qingqing, I don't mind. She added in her heart, in fact, I didn't mind back then either, but you— Song Qingshu angrily pulled Xia Qingqing's hand. What nonsense are you talking about? Although she was used to being affectionate with Song Qingshu in front of Audiobook, Xia Qingqing still could not put down her pride. She hurriedly pulled her hand back and muttered, Didn't I always tell you that I can't let big brother Yuan be humiliated, so I can't let outsiders know that we're together? Song Qingshu frowned. Audiobook is not an outsider. Xia Qingqing was so anxious that she stamped her feet. How could she make him understand? At this time, the two of them were not chatting in bed without any scruples, and they could say those embarrassing things. Xia Qingqing organized her words, looked at Zhu Yu and said, Audiobook, I won't marry Big Brother Song in the future. I'm still Madame Yuan, but I just hope that you won't mind if I have any contact with him in the future. Song Qingshu finally understood. Wasn't it just like what the two of them had agreed on? Pretending to be a plank road, but secretly going against the grain. It was just the word steal. Her expression was so serious that it was a false alarm. Zhu Yu was not stupid. After thinking for a while, she understood the hidden meaning of Xia Qingqing's words. She couldn't help but look at Song Qingshu, wondering what was so good about this bad guy that she was willing to be his secret lover. She felt that this was too unfair to Xia Qingqing. Just as she was about to persuade her, she suddenly understood Xia Qingqing's concerns. Putting herself in her shoes, if she were Xia Qingqing, she would definitely not be willing to remarry to Song Qingshu and let Yuan Qingji become the talk of Jianghu people after his death. Qingqing, in this world, I'm afraid that no one can understand your feelings better than me. I know that you can't get over the hurdle in your heart, so I won't persuade you anymore. As long as there are no outsiders present, we'll call each other sisters. Zhu Yu reached out to pull Xia Qingqing. Xia Qingqing hesitated for a moment, then took the initiative to hold her hand. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. The grudges of the past had long disappeared with time. This is the best. I was afraid that the two of you would fight. Song Qingshu's untimely laughter rang out. Go to hell. The two girls rolled their eyes at the same time. After all, Xia Qingqing had been with Song Qingshu for a long time, unlike Zhu Yu, who was a little shy and couldn't let go. Hearing Song Qingshu's words, Xia Qingqing rolled her eyes and slyly asked, If we really fight, what are you going to do? Song Qingshu smiled strangely. What else can I do? Anyway, you can't beat me. I'll hit your acupuncture points, take off your clothes, and throw you into the bed. Hee hee, with this relationship, what else can you not put down? You go to die. This time, not to mention Xia Qingqing. Even Zhu Yu, who had always been graceful and indifferent, couldn't stand it anymore. With a light snort, she brushed his face with her sleeves. Chapter 404. Song Qingshu leaned back and dodged it. He said with a smile, "You can't hit me." Xia Qingqing snorted and threw a punch at him. Song Qingshu kept dodging and stroked the two women's faces from time to time. He said with a smile, "In the end, you still can't bear to hit me with a weapon. Are you afraid of hurting me?" The two women looked at each other and couldn't bear it anymore. They shouted and pulled out their weapons at the same time. Zhu Yaoyao was a true disciple of the Iron Sword sect. Later, she had a fortuitous encounter and was already a first-class master in Jianghu. Later, because she practiced the Happy Zen with Song Qingshu and Shengjing, she received half of Song Qingshu's internal force and had already become one of the top masters in Jianghu. Xia Qingqing was also a true disciple of the Golden Snake Scholar. Coupled with Yuan Qingji's careful guidance over the years, her martial arts were also not the same as before. The two women joined forces, and the room was instantly filled with cold light and sword chi. Song Qingshu was suddenly forced to panic and hurriedly shouted, "Are you going to murder your husband?" Xia Qingqing snorted, "I am Mrs. Yuan. It has nothing to do with you." Zhu Yaoyao also said shyly and angrily, "Bah, I haven't married you yet." After saying that, the two women's attacks became fiercer. "I don't believe you are really willing to do it." Song Qingshu simply stopped dodging. He directly closed his eyes and stood in front of the two women, not dodging the two women's swords. The two women just couldn't stand his frivolous words and overreacted for a moment. They would not really hurt him. As if they had a tacit understanding, the two swords stopped 3 feet away from Song Qingshu at the same time. The two women subconsciously looked at each other and realized that they had the same thoughts. They were shy and embarrassed and were stunned for a moment. Song Qingshu quietly opened his eyes and couldn't help but feel happy when he saw the scene in front of him. His figure flashed, and he appeared behind the two women. Before the two women could react, they felt a numbness in their waists. Their strength instantly disappeared, and their bodies fell backward. Song Qingshu laughed heartily. He held their waists with one hand and evaluated them in his heart. After all, Yu Yu's body had been developed a little longer, so her waist was a little more plump. In comparison, Ajio's waist was a little more slender. It was really like the plum, orchid, and autumn chrysanthemum, each excelling in its own field. Feeling Song Qingshu's hand caressing her waist, Zhu Yuehuan's face suddenly turned red. Although the two of them had been honest with each other for a long time, that night with him, in fact, the two of them didn't have much common emotional experience. Zhu Yuehuan still couldn't let it go, so she was still very shy in the face of his intimate actions. However, she didn't dislike it. Compared to when she took the initiative to pursue Yuan Qingji, she enjoyed the feeling of Song Qingshu taking the initiative more. She just didn't know how to respond to him. To express her happiness, she was worried that her future husband would misunderstand her as a lewd woman. But to express her anger, she was worried that she would annoy her lover. So Zhu Yuehuan lowered her head like a quail and kept silent. Xia Qingqing was different. She and Song Qingshu had experienced so much, and they had been together for a long time, so they were already very familiar with each other. What's more, absence makes the heart grow fonder. If only she and Song Qingshu were present, she would have responded enthusiastically. However, Ajie was still next to them. She always felt strange and pouted coquettishly, "Don't bully Ajio." "Do you mean that I only bully you?" Song Qingshu whispered in her ear. Xia Qingqing's heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly explained, "No." Song Qingshu smiled proudly, held the two women's waists, turned around, and sat on the bed with them in his arms. This time, Zhu Yuehuan couldn't pretend to be silent anymore. She asked with a pale face, Brother Song, what are you doing? What does Ajio think I want to do?" A playful smile appeared on the corner of Song Qingshu's mouth. Zhu Yuehuan was speechless for a moment. She was not as thick-skinned as Song Qingshu, so she didn't know how to answer for a moment. Xia Qingqing had experienced Song Qingshu's audacity in certain aspects. Seeing him put her and Ajio on the bed at the same time, she couldn't help but turn pale. "You don't do anything stupid," Song Qingshu snappily said. "Why are your thoughts so filthy? I just want to quietly hold you and chat like this." Oh, what are you talking about? Zhu Yuehuan finally breathed a sigh of relief. We're talking about the election of the new Golden Snake King. Song Qingshu smiled. The two women's attention was finally diverted. Xia Qingqing couldn't help but look at Zhu Yuehuan. Originally, we were worried about how to find a mountain to support him. I didn't expect Ajio to also be one of his people. Zhu Yuehuan blushed and couldn't help but say, General Situ and I have racked our brains for this matter. If we had known that the current female leader of the Golden Snake Battalion was also one of Brother Song's people, we wouldn't have been so worried. Seeing the two women subconsciously start a war of words, Song Qingshu promptly said, Hey, including you two, there are only two mountains. It's still far from half. Xia Qingqing and Ah Jiao also realized that there was something wrong with the atmosphere just now. They couldn't help but look at each other and smile. Xia Qingqing opened her mouth and said, I should be able to win the Golden Dragon Gang support. Zhu Yuehuan also said, Azure Bamboo Gang's Chief Chung was my master when I was roaming Jianghu. I have already won his support. In addition, I also plan to visit Shuijian. He used to be the Ming Dynasty's chief army. Although he later joined the Golden Snake Battalion, he still has some loyalty. The hope of winning his support is still quite big. But even if everything goes smoothly, only 5 mountains will support Brother Song. It's still less than half, Xia Qingqing worriedly said. Song Qingshu clearly laughed and said, My two beloved wives don't need to worry. With my martial arts and appearance, it shouldn't be difficult to find another mountain to support me. At worst, I will find a mountain leader who has a daughter. If I have no other choice, I can also sacrifice my body. So shameless. The two women couldn't help but spit. Song Qingshu smiled, but didn't say anything. Very soon, the room fell into a strange silence. Zhu Yuehuan gently pulled her sleeves. It was obvious that she was quite nervous. Xia Qingqing's heart was also in turmoil. She was worried that if they continued to stay here, Song Qingshu might make some excessive request. She hastily said, I will first go and contact Golden Dragon Gang's Jiao. 1. Brother Song, you and Ajio have been separated for a long time. You should accompany Ajio. Song Qingshu doubtfully said, We have also been separated for a long time. Xia Qingqing couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. She moved closer to his ear and quietly said, I know what you are thinking, but Ajio is a pure girl. How can she suddenly accept your request? You have to give her some buffer time. Song Qingshu suddenly understood that Xia Qingqing still thought that Ajio was still a girl. However, he couldn't explain this kind of thing to her. So, he pondered and looked at her and said, Can you accept it? Xia Qingqing bit her lips. After a long time, she said, I can only accept Ajio. That way, don't even think about other people. Chapter 405. As soon as Xia Qingqing finished speaking, she was embarrassed and quickly said, Let me go. I still have business to attend to. Song Qingshu was in a good mood at this time, so he released her acupoint. Ha ha, remember what you just said. Xia Qingqing spat softly and ran out without looking back. Zhu Xiaoxiao asked in confusion, What did Qingqing say just now? Because she was not familiar with Song Qingshu, Zhu Yanai was playing with her fingers with her head down. She was so nervous that she did not pay attention to what the two were talking about, not to mention that Xia Qingqing had deliberately lowered her voice. She asked me to accompany you. Song Qingshu whispered in her ear with an evil smile. Feeling the hot breath of Song Qingshu, Zhu Yanai's skin could not help but tremble. She said with a little panic, I'll also go contact the mountain leaders. Didn't you say there was no problem? The 3 monks had no water to drink, so Xia Qingqing left first to create an opportunity for him. Song Qingshu was not willing to disappoint her good intentions. It's just a matter of course, but it has to be confirmed in person. I haven't discussed this matter with them. After all, Zhu Yanai suddenly became hesitant. After what? Song Qingshu asked curiously. My master is easy to talk to, but I haven't talked to Shui Jian yet. After all, he needs to confirm with you first before he can show up. It's your fault for not coming for so long. Zhu Yanai thought that her relationship with Song Qing-shu had not been confirmed before. If she suddenly ran to others and asked them to support Song Qing-shu, what if Song Qing-shu was not willing to be with her? Then wouldn't she, a dignified princess, lose all her face? As the golden snake gathering approached, Zhu Yanai had been sending people to inquire about Song Qing-shu's whereabouts, waiting for his arrival. She did not expect that he would be delayed on the road, which made Zhu Yanai feel a little resentful. Confirm the relationship? Song Qing-shu was overjoyed. Then I'll confirm the relationship with you. Then he undid her belt. Zhu Xiaoyi was shocked and hurriedly pressed his hand. Didn't we just confirm our relationship? That's not enough. Song Qing-shu gently shook his head and began to slowly kiss her cheek. You. Zhu Ying bit her lips, and she was so nervous that her whole body was trembling. Although they had been intimate once before, they were forced to do so. But now, Zhu Xining even had a feeling that she had entrusted the wrong person. But on second thought, maybe men were like this? Anyway, she had already made up her mind to follow him, not to mention that she was already his woman. After thinking for a while, Zhu Xiaoyao sighed faintly and gently closed her eyes, letting him do whatever he wanted. Every time their skin touched, her soul would tremble. Okay, Zhu Xiaoyao slightly opened her mouth, slightly raised her chin, and showed her smooth and delicate neck in front of her lover. She was so nervous that she seemed to be able to hear her own heartbeat. Seeing that she was letting him do whatever he wanted, how could Song Qing-shu be polite? One hand quietly reached into her clothes, and the other hand skillfully untied the silk belt around her waist. When Song Qing-shu touched Zhu Xiaoyao's belt, she subconsciously blocked it with her hand. Song Qing-shu gently pushed her hand aside, and she didn't continue to insist. Soon, a snow-white and attractive body appeared in front of him. He gently pushed her body down on the bed. Feeling that her body was a little stiff, Song Qing-shu chuckled in order to relieve her tension. Ajio, it's not the first time between us. Why are you so nervous? Relax a little. Zhu Xiaoyao suddenly felt resentful. How could I know that you were so eager for sex? I just entrusted my life to you, and you were like this. It would be strange if I wasn't nervous. Don't you remember last time in Shengjing? Song Qing-shu leaned down and whispered in her ear. Zhu Xiaoyao's face suddenly turned red. Recalling the charm of that day, she couldn't help but feel excited. Finally, she slowly relaxed. Song Qing-shu's fingers gently slid across her skin, and he sincerely praised. The hot spring is smooth and coagulated. Ajio, your skin is really good. This was the most normal compliment, but Song Qing-shu had forgotten that this was the ancient times when feudal ethics prevailed. Hearing such a direct compliment from him, Zhu Yaoying felt shy and anxious. However, to be praised by her lover, she could not help but feel a little proud in her heart. Suddenly, a sweet fragrance came. Song Qing-shu was surprised and said, "This is the best incense in the Forbidden City. There are not many in the palace. Ajio, how do you have it?" This incense is called Madame Hua Rui's incense. It was my favorite when I was in the Imperial Palace. Later, when I was in exile in Jianghu, I naturally didn't have it anymore. Fortunately, I was once curious and looked up its formula, so I figured it out myself. The recipe for this incense seems to have been lost in the Manchurian Qing Palace. Tell me quickly. In order to ease Zhu Xiaoyao's nervousness and eliminate the sense of unfamiliarity between them, Song Qing-shu took great pains to deliberately lead the topic to the thing she was most familiar with and liked. If I remember correctly, it should be agarwood, 3 taels each of incense, 1 tael each of sandalwood, half a chin of camphor, 1 tael each of incense, 1 chin of musk. Mash them together, add in charcoal, plain salt, mix it well with honey, put it into a porcelain box, boil it for 10 minutes, take it out and simmer it for 7 days. Seeing that Song Qing-shu liked the fragrance on her body, Zhu Xiaoyao seemed to have found a soulmate, and her face exuded a charming glow. Although she had been in exile in Jianghu for many years, the grace and luxury she had cultivated in the palace since childhood had been deeply rooted in her bones and closely integrated with her own temperament. Therefore, She always fell out of place when she got along with people in Jianghu, and others would only think that she was spoiled and too rich. Although she liked Yuan Qingji so much, she had never talked about these with him. Firstly, Yuan Qingji didn't understand. Secondly, Yuan Qingji was just a man in Jianghu after all. Zhu Xiaoyao was worried that talking about these would arouse his disgust and widen the distance between them. Song Qingshu had learned a lot of things. In addition, he had been the fake emperor in the imperial palace for so long, so he was imperceptibly influenced by what he saw and heard. The two of them began to chat about the problem of incense. Seeing the excitement on Zhu Xiaoyao's face, Song Qingshu knew that he had successfully dispelled her nervousness. How could he have the energy to continue talking about incense with her? He moved closer to her ear and whispered, "Jill, you don't have to work so hard to refine incense in the future. With your recipe, I'll have someone in the palace make it and give it to you when it's done." Only then did Zhu Xiaoyao remember that in a sense, he had already seized control of the Manchurian Qing. She couldn't help but reach out to touch his cheek and murmur emotionally, "Song Lang." Chapter 406. After the clouds disappeared, Zhu Xiaoxiao's face was tightly pressed against Song Qingshu's chest, and she said with a slight resentment, "Song Qingshu, are you satisfied now?" A young girl's unique sensitivity allowed her to easily guess her lover's thoughts. The reason why Song Qingshu was so eager to do that kind of thing with her so soon after they met was indeed because he was full of doubts and wanted to use this opportunity to test her. Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly, and the hand holding her tightened. "I'm sorry that you saw through me." "That's good. At least it dispels the gap between us." Zhu Xiaoxiao suddenly lowered her head shyly. "Besides, it doesn't feel that bad." "Just not that bad?" Song Qingshu teased her with a smirk. "It's not bad." Zhu Yinchi chuckled as she dodged. "Just not bad." Song Qingshu pretended to show a disappointed expression. "You're deliberately bullying me." Zhu Xiaoxiao was slightly annoyed, but she was worried that she would disappoint him, so she suddenly became a little bashful. Her voice was almost inaudible. "I like it very much." Noticing that Zhu Xiaoxiao's originally white face was dyed with a layer of passionate blush, Song Qingshu was suddenly tempted. Noticing the change in his body, Zhu Xiaoxiao's face became even redder, and she said insincerely, "Didn't you just promise me to find Shui Jian with you? It's still early. It's not too late to go later." Song Qingshu said perfunctorily, and soon his body pressed on top of hers again. "Why are you so shameless?" Zhu Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes at him with a slightly annoyed voice, but she still subconsciously opened her legs and welcomed the man on top of her. Feeling these subtle movements of hers, Song Qingshu was secretly moved. A woman may lie with her mouth, but her body's reaction could not be faked. Song Qingshu only felt that everything was so wonderful when he thought about her noble identity with a girl who loved him wholeheartedly. "I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. Song Lang, don't bully me like this." Not long after, Zhu Yu's sobbing voice sounded intermittently in the room. At this moment, Zhu Xiaoyi's voice was like the voice of a fairy. Song Qingshu pitifully stopped his movement and gently kissed her forehead. A moment later, Zhu Xiaoyan finally came to herself. She moved her body slightly, and immediately, she could clearly feel the scorching heat coming from Song Qingshu. The feeling of touch made her soul shudder, and her entire body trembled unconsciously. Zhu Yaoyao looked at the man in front of her, whom she had entrusted her life to. She raised her hand and gently stroked Song Qingshu's cheek. "All the men I've met before are modest gentlemen. How could I have known that I would meet a devil like you? What a scoundrel!" Then, "My dear ninth princess, do you prefer a gentleman or a scoundrel?" Song Qingshu tilted his head and put her finger in his mouth. "Normally, of course I like a gentleman." Zhu Xiaoyi gently pulled her finger out and tilted her head slightly to the side. "But at times like this, I prefer a scoundrel." Song Qingshu's heart swayed when he saw the trace of charm inadvertently revealed in her eyes. He could not help but ask, "Are you okay now?" "Yes." Zhu Xiaoyi nodded slightly. "You can move now." Seeing that she tilted her head to the side, Song Qing-shu held her snow-white shoulder and turned her back to him. Under her puzzled eyes, Song Qing-shu leaned over and whispered in her ear, "I'm going to teach you a set of peerless martial arts now." "What kind of martial arts?" Zhu Xiaoyi felt a little resentful. How could she be in the mood to learn martial arts at this time? This was created by an expert named Yuba. It's called the 18 Forms of Subduing Phoenix. On the way to Shui Jian's mountain camp, Zhu Xiaoyi had not fully recovered. From time to time, she would secretly look at the man beside her. Her cheeks were bright red, and she thought bitterly in her heart, "Song Qing-shu is really too bad. He actually made me serve him in such a shameful position just now." He said that there are still 17 forms that haven't been used. That Yuba must be a bastard. Is there something on my face? Ajio, why do you keep staring at me? Of course, Song Qing-shu knew why, but seeing Zhu Xiaoyi's shy appearance, he wanted to tease her. "If I knew you were so bad, I wouldn't have foolishly offered myself to you." Zhu Xiaoyi still felt that her legs were a little weak. She touched her burning cheeks and could not help but pout. "How can I meet people like this? Why don't you go find Shui Jian yourself? I want to see what my Ajio looks like now." Song Qing-shu held her shoulder in a serious manner and looked her up and down. "Well, you're bright and moving. You'll definitely charm a lot of people later." Although she knew that he was teasing her, Zhu Xiaoyi couldn't help but feel a little sweet to be praised by her lover. She quickly took out a layer of veil from her lapel and covered her face. "I don't care. I don't want others to see me like this. I'm reluctant to let you go." Song Qing-shu laughed and walked forward with his arm around her waist. "Oh, let go of your hand. What if someone sees it?" Zhu Xiaoyi suddenly became anxious and quickly tried to push his hand away. "If someone sees it, then so be it. With our relationship, what's wrong with hugging your waist? What's more, in my hometown, couples go shopping intimately like this." Song Qing-shu said indifferently, "There's no such custom in Mount Wudong." Zhu Xiaoyi couldn't help but murmur. Since she decided to marry Song Qing-shu, she had investigated a lot about her lover. It was no exaggeration to say that she knew a little bit about Song Qing-shu's childhood. "Song, how do you want people to call sect leader Zhou in the future?" Although her tone was joking, Zhu Xiaoyi looked very nervous. She didn't rashly call Zhou Zhiru a younger sister, nor did she want to call her elder sister. As a princess of a country, she was used to the intrigue between the imperial concubines in the harem. She understood that only the concubines with higher status could call her elder sister. For example, when a concubine met the empress, even if she was older than the empress, she could only call the empress elder sister and never younger sister. With Zhu Xiaoyi's identity, she naturally didn't want to be a concubine, but Song Qing-shu was already married. When she found out about this, her heart was almost broken. Fortunately, she found out that the relationship between the couple seemed to be a little abnormal. According to the rumors in Jianghu, the person Zhou Zhiruo loved seemed to be Zhang Wuji. At that time, Zhu immediately understood why Song Qing-shu would look disgusted whenever she mentioned Zhang Wuji during the day she had been in contact with him. This was also the reason why Zhu Xiaoyi had so decisively asked to resign from the Ming clan's holy maiden. Years ago, when she fought with Xia Qingqing over Yuan Qingji, she chose to give up. After that, in the dead of night, she often regretted it. Therefore, when she met Song Qing-shu later, she secretly made up her mind not to make the same mistake again. Since Zhou Zhiruo and Zhang Wuji were entangled, she immediately drew a clear line with Zhang Wuji and even the Ming dynasty, forming a sharp contrast with Zhou Zhiruo. When a woman faced a rival in love, the most innocent ninth princess couldn't help but use a little trick. Chapter 407. Why do all women like to ask this question? Song Qing-shu said with a wry smile, "You are 1 or 2 years older than her. You can call her younger sister, and she can call you elder sister." Zhu Xiaoyi looked at him bitterly and said, "You know that's not what I mean." Song Qing-shu certainly knew what she meant. He knew that women in this world attached great importance to the issue of status. It mattered a lot whether one was a wife or a concubine. But how could he answer this question? Unable to resist Zhu Xiaoyi's pitiful eyes, Song Qing-shu had to say, "In my hometown, there is no distinction between wives and concubines. In the future, all of you will be my wives, and I will treat each of you equally." Zhu Xiaoyi was shocked by a shocking idea and could not help but say, "How is this possible?" It was no wonder that she did not believe it. Since the Western Zhou dynasty, these customs have been passed down from generation to generation, and the concept of wives and concubines have been deeply rooted in everyone's bones. Apart from other things, the status of wives and concubines was related to a woman's status in the family, which in turn affected the status of her children and the right of inheritance in the future. Only the official wife could be listed in the family tree, and the son she gave birth to was called the legitimate son and had the right to inherit the title. The children of other concubines and the so-called co-wives were all born of concubines. Seeing that Zhu Xiaoyi did not believe him, Song Qing-shu said seriously, "This is indeed what I really think." Zhu Xiaoyi was stunned. Hearing that he did not sound like he was joking, she wondered if what he said was true. Zhu Xiaoyi, who had been born in the royal family since childhood, naturally would not believe that such a naive idea could be realized. She then smiled sweetly and said, "Song Qing-shu, I can be your concubine, and it doesn't matter even if I don't have a title. But you have to promise me one thing." Song Qing-shu was stunned. "What is it?" "If you can unify the world, when our child is born in the future, you can give him some of the former lands of the Ming dynasty and let him inherit the Ming dynasty." Zhu Xiaoyi had known Song Qing-shu for a long time, especially after she knew that he had deceived everyone and replaced Kangxi with a peach. She was happy but also secretly frightened. She knew that with his ambition, he would not be satisfied with fighting against the Qing dynasty and restoring the Ming dynasty. As a woman, it was natural for her to follow the chicken she married. Sometimes, she also thought that as long as Song Qing-shu could fight against the Qing, it didn't matter whether he could recover his sight or not. However, as a descendant of the royal family of the great Ming dynasty, Zhu Yinshi could not let go of the heavy responsibility on his shoulders. Now, she is using her influence and the legitimate status of the great Ming dynasty to help Song Qing-shu. If, in the end, she ends up working for someone else, she would be letting down the ancestors of the Zhu family. Therefore, after thinking about it, Zhu Yiren finally came up with such a way to satisfy both sides. "You've endured too many things that ordinary girls don't need to bear." Song Qing-shu reached out to stroke her cheek with pity, then nodded solemnly. "Okay, I promise you." "Really?" Zhu Yinshi looked at him in disbelief. It should be known that the concept of incense was extremely important in this world. Almost no man was willing to let his son take a woman's surname, not to mention that it involved the enfeoffment of land. After Qin Shi Huang abolished the feudal system and established counties, the later dynasties almost no longer enfeoffed countries like the Zhou dynasty. After the Han dynasty and the Jin dynasty, the Seven Kingdoms Rebellion and the Eight Kings Rebellion, the later rulers were even more cautious about enfeoffing. Most of the time, the enfeoffment of kings was just an empty shell in name. While Zhu Yaoyao was still feeling touched, she heard Song Qing-shu say with a smile, "In any case, unifying the world is still a long way off for me. Using an empty promise to trick a noble princess into marrying me, no matter how I look at it, it's a good deal." "You." Before Zhu Yinshi could get angry, she was already in Song Qing-shu's arms, and his solemn voice sounded in her ears. "Believe me, Ajio." Zhu Yinshi was stunned for a moment. Then she nodded and leaned her face tightly against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. After a long time, seeing that he still didn't let go of her, Zhu Yinshi was a little embarrassed. She was worried that they would be seen by passers-by, so she quickly pushed him away and pretended to be resentful. "Anyway, I can't do anything if you go back on your words. Who told me to be so stupid and be cheated by you from the beginning?" Seeing that she mentioned the incident in Shengjing again, Song Qing-shu immediately retorted with a guilty conscience. "How is that cheating? I really did it to save you." "Really?" Zhu Yinshi said with a faint smile. "Do you really have no other way to save me?" "Of course not," Song Qing-shu quickly said with a straight face. I wonder who was the one who carried the seriously injured Mongolian princess from Shandong province to Kaifeng City in less than a day to seek treatment from the famous killer doctor. Zhu Yuai had been inquiring about Song Qingshu's whereabouts, so he naturally knew that Song Qingshu had brought Zhao Min to seek treatment. Song Qingshu's forehead was full of sweat, and he explained embarrassedly, "That's not the same." "Oh, what's the difference? Why didn't you save her the way you saved me this time?" Zhu Yinchi looked at him slyly. Song Qingshu thought, "I can't say that I thought that method was a little too shameless, right?" Zhu Yinchi would be furious. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind, and he said she was not seriously injured at that time, so she didn't need to use that ultimate weapon. Hearing his adjective, Zhu Yinchi blushed and couldn't help but say, "I'm afraid she didn't allow you to use that method, right? I've long heard that the Mongolian princess Xiaomin is as smart as a fox. Compared with her, I'm so stupid. I actually believed your nonsense at that time." Song Qingshu said anxiously, "Your life was really in danger at that time, and there was no time to waste." Seeing his nervous look, Zhu Yinchi couldn't help but laugh. "Silly brother, I deliberately teased you. Anyway, now that I think about it, it doesn't seem to be a bad thing to believe you at that time. It feels not bad. Wow, you actually teased me." Song Qingshu couldn't help but reach out to tickle her. Zhu Yinchi dodged and cried out, "Oh, we're at their camp. Don't make trouble." Song Qingshu glanced to the side, and sure enough, they had reached Shui Jian's camp, so he immediately stopped moving. In front of this former minister of the great Ming dynasty, he had to save some face for Zhu Yinchi. Hearing the two's report, the soldier guarding the gate waved his hand and said, "You can go back. Our Zongbing will not see you today." Although Shui Jian had become a bandit, he was still proud of his former status as the Zongbing. It should be known that although there were differences between the Zongbing of the Ming dynasty, the worst one was at least at the same level as the commander of a provincial military, so most of Shui Jian's subordinates still called him the Zongbing. "How do you know he won't see us when you haven't reported him?" Zhu Yinchi asked curiously. Although her face was covered by a veil, Zhu Yinchi's peerless charm still amazed the soldier. In order to talk to her for a while, he deliberately showed off and said, "Fairy, let me tell you a secret. Today, a distant cousin of Zongbing Shui came to visit him with his daughter. That Miss Shui is also as beautiful as the flowers and the moon, and she looks so delicate and fresh that all the brothers in the camp drooled at the sight of her." Zhu Yinchi had to interrupt him when she heard him praising the Miss Shui. And then, the soldier came back to his senses and said with an embarrassed smile, "Of course, Miss Shui is not as beautiful as Fairy." Later, a foreign monk with a high level of martial arts came, and he seemed to be called Blood Knife Ancestor. He coveted Miss Shui's beauty, so he took advantage of the fact that Zongbing Shui and the others were not paying attention and kidnapped her. Now Zongbing Shui and the others are chasing after the foreign monk. So how can they meet you? Chapter 408. Miss Shui. From Jiangnan again. Could it be Shui Sheng? Song Qingshu's expression suddenly became very interesting. The surname Shui was rare, not to mention that she was related to Blood Knife Ancestor. Song Qingshu thought to himself, the butterfly effect is quite big. Dian was rescued from prison by me in advance, and then brought to Yin Jing City by me. Naturally, he didn't have the chance to meet Shui Sheng and trigger the plot of the Snow Valley at the edge of Tibet in the original work. However, the correction ability of history is really strong. Without the Snow Valley at the edge of Tibet, Shui Sheng was still taken away by Blood Knife Ancestor. Thinking of that unruly and willful young girl, Song Qingshu revealed a nostalgic smile. In any case, it could be said that they were fated. He couldn't really let her be defiled by Blood Saber Ancestor. He hurriedly asked, "When did Lady Shui get kidnapped by Blood Saber Ancestor?" In the face of Song Qingshu, the soldier was not as patient as he was with Zhu Yuai. When he thought that Song Qingshu was the man of that fairy, he couldn't help showing an envious expression and said with jealousy, "Last night. It has been more than 20 hours since then." After asking in the direction of Shui Jian and the others, Song Qingshu took Zhu Yui to the side and whispered, "Jiu, in this situation, I will help Shui Jian and the others to save his niece. After that, he will be embarrassed to refuse our request. It has been so long. Is it too late?" Zhu Yui pouted and couldn't help complaining. "It's all your fault. I just said to come find them earlier, but you dragged me." "Nonsense. Didn't you delay the business? How would I know that something like this would happen?" Song Qingshu said angrily, "But with my lightness skill, it is not impossible to catch up with them. Gio, go back first. When Qingqing comes back, tell her what happened here. I will come back as soon as possible." "Okay, then be careful." Zhu Yui wanted to go with him, but when she moved a little, there was a numb and sore feeling between her legs. Her body was really a little tired. Thinking of someone who was the culprit, she couldn't help but glare at Song Qingshu fiercely. "Don't worry, it is just Blood Knife Ancestor." Song Qingshu smiled confidently. "Then I will go first?" "Yes." Zhu Meng gently nodded. She watched as Song Qingshu casually took a step and appeared hundreds of feet away. She couldn't help but stick out her tongue and said, "I didn't expect that Song Qingshu's movement technique has already reached the peak." Zhu Yui had always been proud of her lightness skill. Now that she had seen the huge gap between them, she felt a little disappointed and a little proud. Now, she had seen the huge gap between the two. As Song Qingshu flew gracefully, he searched for traces of Blood Knife Ancestor and his party. He thought to himself, Shui Sheng was just taken away by Blood Knife Ancestor, and Shui Jian and the others immediately chased after them. It seems that Blood Knife Ancestor doesn't have time to do anything to Shui Sheng. Shui Sheng should be safe for the time being. But if they change direction halfway through the chase, won't I miss them? Thinking of this, Song Qingshu couldn't help but think of Li Qiushui's soul search in the demigods and semi-devils. If he knew this, it would be much more convenient to find people. At this point, Song Qingshu could only choose the stupidest method. He estimated the furthest they could run with the speed of the horses. If he couldn't catch up with them before then, it proved that he had gone in the wrong direction. He would have to change direction and search in a fan-shaped direction. One car was traveling at 45 kilometers per hour, and the other was traveling at 60 kilometers per hour. How long would it take to catch up with the first car? And how far were the two cars from the starting point when they caught up? Involuntarily, the calculation problems he learned in elementary school appeared in his mind. Song Qingshu suddenly looked depressed. He didn't expect that he couldn't escape from doing homework even after he had transmigrated. Heaven would not disappoint those who work hard. After Song Qingshu racked his brains and calculated accurately, he finally found the traces of Blood Knife Ancestor and the others in a valley. "You're not human. You're a demon. Kill me." A girl's desperate and sad cry came from the snow. Song Qingshu's heart turned cold. Did I come too late? He saw a ball of fire in the distance, and there were two figures surrounding it. One was Blood Knife Ancestor, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, and the other was a skinny old man with a goatee. On the ground was a girl with tears in her eyes. Who else could it be but Shui Sheng? How can I bear to kill such a delicate beauty like you? Wait until I finish eating this roasted lamb. Then I'll come and serve you well. Blood Knife Ancestor laughed and deliberately emphasized the word serve. His tone was full of obscenity. "Niece Shui, just listen to me. Don't be so ungrateful. Their ancestors' divine power is unparalleled, and he fought against 4 of you by himself. He really beat your uncles into a sorry state. Where can you find such a hero in this world?" The old man with the goatee had a flattering expression. "Hey, surname Hua, don't you have any shame? You're as famous as my father and Uncle Lu, but in the end, you're just a shameless coward." Shui Sheng fiercely spat. Her small chest rose and fell rapidly. It was obvious that she was very excited. Seeing the goatee old man's ashamed expression, Blood Knife Ancestor laughed. "Mr. Hua, she's just a little girl. What does she know? As the saying goes, a good bird chooses a tree to nest in." Now, in order to unify the world, our Mongolian Empire is recruiting talented people. With Mr. Hua's martial arts and reputation in the Jiang and martial world, plus my recommendation to King Ali Buj, Mr. Hua will definitely be put in an important position. In the future, you'll be a marquis or a general. Wouldn't it be better to be a free man in the martial world? Yes, yes, yes. What ancestor said is right. The goatee old man nodded and bowed. The shame on his face was swept away and replaced by a kind of desire for power. It seems that this goatee old man is Hua Taigon from the Four Wonders of the Southern Continent. Listening to their conversation, could it be that the original story of the snowy valley at the border of Tibet is repeating itself? Only Hua Taigon wagged his tail and begged Blood Knife Ancestor for mercy. Only then did he survive. However, according to the guard soldier, besides the Four Wonders of the Southern Continent, there was also the black and white dual swords, Shui Jian, and another mysterious expert. Could it be that they were all killed by Blood Knife Ancestor? How was that possible? Song Qing Shu was secretly shocked. Just as he was about to jump out to save Shui Sheng, he suddenly heard a clear and melodious shout. "Great monk, were you the ones who kill my sheep?" Song Qing Shu looked in the direction of the voice and saw a girl in a light green dress angrily staring at Blood Knife Ancestor and Hua Taigon. He suddenly felt strange. When did this girl appear there? Why didn't I notice her at all? Blood Knife Ancestor also looked up and down at the girl in the green dress. She had an oval face, long eyelashes, white skin, and a very beautiful appearance. He suddenly smiled proudly. I have been lucky with women recently. Such a beautiful girl has come. It seems that I have to eat more mutton to nourish my body. Looking at the squeaking sheep that was being roasted on the bonfire, the girl became even more angry. Why did you kill my sheep? Blood Knife Ancestor smiled and did not answer. He raised his knife and approached the girl step by step. The tip of the knife silently cut her belt. Song Qing Shu saw that she was slender and delicate, and he could not detect any genuine qi in her body. He quickly jumped to her side, hugged her slender waist, and retreated several feet, dodging Blood Knife Ancestor's extremely exquisite knife. Girl, be careful. This big monk is not a good person. He kills without blinking, let alone your sheep. Chapter 409. Song Qing Shu originally wanted to jump out and save Shui Sheng by surprise. His martial arts skills were far higher than Blood Knife Ancestors, but he had a hostage in his hands. If they really fought, it would be difficult to avoid harming the innocent. He didn't know where this green-robed girl came from. Seeing Blood Knife Ancestor's vulgar moves, she knew that if she didn't save Shui Sheng, the girl's dress would be cut by his knife. Even in the open modern world of his previous life, a girl being stripped naked on the street was a despairing thing, let alone in this world where etiquette ran rampant. A girl exposed in front of several grown men, she would drown herself in a well within minutes. Song Qing Shu had to dispel his previous thoughts and save the green-robed girl first. As for Shui Sheng, she was not in danger for the time being. He would wait for an opportunity to save her. Seeing the sudden appearance of Song Qing Shu, Blood Knife Ancestor's expression suddenly changed. His reaction was extremely fast. While Song Qing Shu was pulling the green-robed girl away, he flew back to Shui Sheng's side without hesitation and put his blood knife on her neck. Blood Knife Ancestor had dominated the underworld for decades, and his combat experience was extremely rich. He knew that whether he lived or died today, he would have to rely on Shui Sheng as a hostage. Big Brother Song. Seeing Song Qing Shu's appearance, Shui Sheng was surprised and happy. Although her interaction with Song Qing Shu couldn't be considered a pleasant process, she had been reduced to his maidservant and had even called him a perverted thief. Now that she thought about it, Shui Sheng finally understood that although Song Qing Shu had verbally taken advantage of her, his actions could be considered as a gentleman. Compared to a true perverted thief like Blood Knife Ancestor, he was much better. Her uncles and fathers died tragically in front of her one by one, and the fate that awaited her was also to be humiliated. Shui Sheng had long been in despair. Now that she was able to meet an acquaintance like Song Qing Shu, how could she not be surprised? If I remember correctly, you didn't call me that before. Seeing that Blood Knife Ancestor had already restrained Shui Sheng, Song Qing-shu did not dare to act rashly. He could only use words to numb Blood Knife Ancestor and see if he could make him reveal any flaws. Shui Sheng's face turned red. How could she call Song Qing-shu a pervert when there was a real pervert next to her? Big brother Song, my father, Uncle Liu, and Uncle Liu all died in the hands of this evil thief. If you can kill this evil thief, I'm willing to be your slave for the rest of my life. Shui Sheng said while tears flowed down her cheeks. It's not like I'm going to farm. What do I need cows and horses for? Song Qing-shu pretended to be angry. With Shui Sheng as a hostage, Blood Knife Ancestor was finally able to relax a little. When he heard the conversation between the two of them, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. Prince Song, you don't understand. Miss Shui is the daughter of a noble family. She'd be too embarrassed to speak so bluntly in front of so many people. Old Ancestor will explain it to you. Cows and horses are not only used to plow the fields, cows can also produce milk, and horses can also be ridden. Prince Song, do you still not understand what Miss Shui means? Is that even possible? Song Qing-shu couldn't help being stunned and secretly gave Blood Knife Ancestor a thumbs up. Hearing Blood Knife Ancestor's filthy words, Shui Sheng's face turned pale with anger, and she hurriedly explained, I didn't mean it that way. If you don't want a cow or a horse, I'll be your maid, okay? Thinking back to the jokes between them in the past and all the nightmares that had happened today, Shui Sheng felt wronged and tears streamed down her cheeks. Hey, when are you going to hug me for? Song Qing-shu was just about to answer Shui Sheng when a clear and melodious voice suddenly sounded in his ear. Only then did he realize that he was still holding the green-robed girl in his arms. Sorry, I was distracted just now. Song Qing-shu quickly released his hands and apologized. He seemed to be chatting with Shui Sheng, but in fact he was focused on looking for any flaws that Blood Knife Ancestor had revealed, so he forgot that there was still a girl in his arms. It's nothing. The green-robed girl casually waved her hand with an innocent look on her face. Obviously, she didn't have any barriers between men and women. Song Qing-shu felt strange. How could there be such a beautiful girl in this barren mountain? Moreover, she seemed to be ignorant of worldly affairs. Big brother, why did you pull me back just now? The green-robed girl tilted her head and stared at him. I was worried that this stinky monk would hurt you. He's very fierce. Song Qing-shu cursed in his heart. Even a blind man could see that he was trying to save her. Well, this monk is so ugly, and he killed my sheep. He's a big bad guy. The green-robed girl glared at Blood Knife Ancestor. Yes, he's really ugly. He doesn't even have a single hair on his head. Even his eyebrows are almost gone. He must have done a bad thing, and the immortals would pull out a hair. If he did too many bad things and didn't have enough hair, he would replace it with eyebrows. That's a very strange way of saying it. Hearing the two of them talking, Blood Knife Ancestor couldn't help but frown. He angrily said, Are you two done? Following which, Dao Feng pointed at Shui Sheng's smooth face and said, I say, little girl from the Shui family, take a look for yourself. That lover of yours has a new lover, and he has forgotten about you, his old lover. One look, and I can tell that he is a heartless person. Why don't you follow me? Hey, even if I follow a pig or a dog, I won't follow you. Shui Sheng spat at him. Besides, he's not my lover. Song Qing-shu smiled faintly and looked at Blood Knife Ancestor. Ancestor, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. Back in Yangzhou City's lovely spring courtyard, when you guys joined forces to ambush me, this little girl saw that I was in danger and immediately ran away. Why do you think I saved such a woman? When Shui Sheng heard this, she couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. At that time, she was just a prisoner of Song Qing-shu and Wei Xiaobao. It was understandable for her to escape during the chaos, but she still felt guilty for a long time because of this. It was only when she received news that Song Qing-shu had safely passed the calamity that she felt relieved. Seeing Song Qing-shu mention this matter again, Shui Sheng sighed in her heart. It seems that he really cares about my betrayal. At that time, he also hesitated for a long time. Who asked him to be with that dog of a government official, Wei Xiaobao? Bloodknife Ancestor laughed and said, Prince Song, don't try to fool me with your tricks. If you really don't care about Miss Shui's safety, why did you chase me from so far away? With your martial arts, it's not difficult for you to defeat me. Why didn't you make a move? Isn't it because Miss Shui is in my hands at this time? You're just worried about hurting her. Song Qingshu nodded slightly and said, Ancestor is really clear. Yes, I want to save her. Tell me what conditions you want to let her go. Okay, Prince Song is really straightforward. My request is actually very simple. Let me go. After I'm safe, I won't make things difficult for Miss Shui. At that time, I'll arrange for her to stay in an inn in Coiling Dragon Town. Just treat it as a meeting gift. How about we become friends? Chapter 410. Bloodknife Ancestor had seen Song Qingshu many times, so he was naturally aware of the changes in his martial arts during this time. Especially after witnessing Song Qingshu's fight with Ouyang Feng on Divine Dragon Island. He was even more certain that he was no match for Song Qingshu. Although Bloodknife Ancestor was brave and fierce, he was not a fool. He would not fight someone he knew he was no match for. So he tried to turn an enemy into a friend with Song Qingshu. After all, in his opinion, there was no blood feud between the two. Moreover, Song Qingshu was no longer an official of the Manchurian Imperial Court, so there was no conflict between the two. Song Qingshu smiled faintly. We can make a deal, but we can forget about being friends. We are destined to never be friends. A fierce expression flashed across Bloodknife Ancestor's face. Before he could speak, Shui Sheng spoke first. Big Brother Song, don't worry about me. Please help me kill. Her voice stopped abruptly. It turned out that her mute acupoint had been sealed by Bloodknife Ancestor. Since that's the case, we will meet on the battlefield in the future. Bloodknife Ancestor pulled Shui Sheng up and grabbed her neck with one hand. He held the blood knife in the other hand and slowly retreated. Ancestor, what should I do? This time, it was Hua Tiegon's turn to be dumbfounded. If Shui Sheng was allowed to live, his disgraceful behavior today would inevitably be leaked, and he would have no place in Jianghu in the future. This time, Bloodknife Ancestor had originally come under Brother Ali's order to stir up trouble. This was because Brother Ali had heard the rumor that he would be exchanging encampments with the Riyang household. Brother Ali thought about how he had worked hard for several years without contributing an inch to the Manchurian Imperial Court. If the Manchurian Imperial Court were to fall into chaos and the Riyang household came to take advantage of them, where would he put his face in front of the Great Khan? He heard that Princess Zhao Min of the Riyang household had secretly sneaked into the Manchurian Imperial Court to rope in various forces. Brother Ali naturally couldn't let her do as she wished, so he sent Bloodknife Ancestor to ruin Zhao Min's plans. When Bloodknife Ancestor was investigating the Golden Snake camp, he happened to see Shui Sheng alone in her room. His lust was aroused, and he couldn't help but capture her. This time Shui Sheng came with her father, Shui Dai, to visit her uncle, Shui Jian. Coincidentally, the black and white swords were also invited by the four strange southern sect to help. In addition, Shui Jian intended to nominate the candidate for the Golden Snake King, the hero of Jinyang, Xiaoban. Their martial arts skills were not inferior to the Bloodknife Ancestor. The commotion from Shui Sheng's direction quickly alerted the group of experts, and they all chased after it. Fortunately, Bloodknife Ancestor had roamed the Jianghu for many years and was extremely cunning. He set up a maze along the way, leading the group of experts behind him to a few side roads. After some discussion, Shui Jian and the others decided to split into three groups. The black and white dual swords couple would go south, Shui Jian and Xiaoban he would go west, and Luo Hua and Lu Shui would go north. In their opinion, any group of experts would be more than enough to deal with Bloodknife Ancestor. How could they expect that Bloodknife Ancestor was so cunning and fierce that he could kill three of the Luo Hua and Lu Shui, and even subdue one of them? However, Bloodknife Ancestor knew that he was at the end of his rope. He was already very lucky to be able to escape from Song Qingshu. How could he still have the mood to carry out the task assigned to him by Brother Alabuch? But he still had to report back to Mongolia. Bloodknife Ancestor rolled his eyes and decided to use Hua Taigon to deal with Brother Alabuch. Mr. Hua, you can't stay in the Central Plains anymore. If you come with me to Mongolia, you will definitely be greatly appreciated by His Royal Highness. When Mongolia takes over the Central Plains, you can return to your hometown in glory. Wouldn't that be great? Although Bloodknife Ancestor's words were beautiful, he muttered in his heart, when the time comes, I will tell His Royal Highness that the Luo Hua and Lu She were important pawns planted by Zhao Min in the Central Plains. I barely managed to kill 3 of them and capture the last one for His Royal Highness to interrogate. But of course, Bloodknife Ancestor would not let Hua Taigon speak. If he did, wouldn't his plan be exposed? Therefore, he had already made up his mind. When he returned to Mongolia, he would quietly kill Hua Taigon and announce to the public that Hua Taigon had committed suicide. Of course, before that, he still had to appease Hua Taigon's emotions. Hua Taigon's martial arts was not bad. He could be a bodyguard to deal with Song Qing-shu. Thank you for your guidance, Ancestor. I will definitely not ask for your great kindness in the future. Hua Taigon smiled flatteringly. Song Qing-shu frowned when he heard this. He thought, Hua Taigon is a famous figure in the martial arts world for decades. How can he be so shameless? Seeing that Song Qing-shu had no intention of intercepting him, Bloodknife Ancestor was secretly happy. In any case, he had completely fallen out with Song Qing-shu today. If he returned this little girl, surnamed Shui, to him according to the agreement, she would definitely stay by Song Qing-shu's side in the future. Bloodknife Ancestor's days would not be good. It was better to wait until it was safe and find a secluded place to enjoy this soft and tender girl first and release the tension in his body. Song Qing-shu would not chase him all the way to the Mongolian grasslands for a woman who had nothing to do with him. While Bloodknife Ancestor was fantasizing, he suddenly heard a clear female voice. Big brother let you go, but I didn't let you go. You killed my sheep and roasted it. Hurry up and pay me back. A sharp glint flashed across Bloodknife Ancestor's eyes. He thought to himself, if it weren't for Song Qing-shu's presence, I would have F***ed you to the point of no return whenever I met a delicate country girl like you. He did not want to cause trouble, so he took out an ingot of silver and said with a pleasant expression, Little girl, this ingot of silver can buy 10 sheep. Consider it my compensation. Unexpectedly, the green-robed girl shook her head. I don't want silver. Bloodknife Ancestor was stunned. Then what do you want? The green-robed girl said, a life for a life. Bloodknife Ancestor was so angry that he laughed. I only killed one of your sheep. You actually want to pay for a sheep with your life? Isn't a life for a life very fair? The green-robed girl tilted her head and stared at him. Obviously, she did not know where his anger came from. Suddenly, the girl showed an expression of sudden realization. Don't worry. After you die, I won't roast you. Looking at your appearance, you definitely won't taste good. Song Qing-shu was speechless. This girl's logic was really touching. Bloodknife Ancestor was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. He used his jinshi to wrap the ingot of silver in his hand and threw it at the green-robed girl. Obviously, he wanted to kill her. This is the chance. Song Qing-shu had been waiting. Seeing that Bloodknife Ancestor was really distracted, he struck the ingot of silver that was flying toward the green-robed girl. Then his figure flashed and appeared in front of Bloodknife Ancestor and Shui Sheng. Bloodknife Ancestor was shocked. He wanted to tighten his grip on Shui Sheng's neck, but his elbow felt numb. Obviously, Song Qing-shu had hit his numbing acupoint, so he could no longer control Shui Sheng. Bloodknife Ancestor also made a prompt decision and retreated. He wanted to take advantage of the time when Song Qing-shu was saving Shui Sheng and run away in the chaos. Song Qing-shu coldly snorted. The wooden sword shot out and hit Bloodknife Ancestor's vital acupoint on his back. An ambitious and ruthless person died just like that. Chapter 411. Hua Taigon cried out in alarm. He didn't expect that Bloodknife Ancestor, who was like a demon god, would be killed so easily. He stood there dumbfounded. Song Qingshu was too lazy to care about him. He reached out to release Shui Sheng's acupoints and asked with concern, "Miss Shui, are you hurt?" Shui Sheng bit her lips and gently broke free from his embrace. She picked up a saber from the ground and quickly walked over to Blood Knife Ancestor's corpse. She started to chop it with all her might, not uttering a single word during the whole process. "Miss Shui, he is already dead." Song Qingshu walked behind her and gently patted her. Seeing that she was still mechanically waving her arms as if she was possessed, he quickly hugged her and leaped away from the badly mutilated corpse. "Wah!" Shui Sheng seemed to come back to her senses and cried loudly on Song Qingshu's chest. Song Qingshu didn't seal Shui Sheng's acupoints. In his opinion, Shui Sheng had experienced such a hellish experience and needed to thoroughly vent it so that it wouldn't leave any psychological shadow in the future. After a long time, Song Qingshu said to distract her, "Miss Shui, why don't we bury your father and the others?" Shui Sheng finally raised her head from his chest. After wiping away her tears, she hummed in agreement. But then she became somewhat hesitant and timidly said, "Brother Song, I want to transport the bodies of my father and uncle back to my hometown for burial. Hero Shui and the others naturally can't be buried in the wilderness. It's just that this place is too far from the Golden Snake Battalion. We can only send people to collect them after we return. If a wild beast passes by during this time, it is very likely that it will damage their bodies. So we will first protect them with stones and then send people to transport their bodies back to Jiangnan. What do you think?" Song Qingshu asked. Everything is as Brother Song says. Shui Sheng had just cried so hard that her eyes were still red. Glancing at Hua Taigon, who was still dumbstruck, Song Qingshu snorted coldly at him. "You with the surname Hua, go find some stones and bury your sworn brothers properly. I can spare your life." In his eyes, Hua Taigon seemed to be frightened, but when he heard Song Qingshu's words, he was immediately overjoyed and hurriedly nodded. Yes, I'll go right away." Shui Sheng frowned as she watched Hua Taigon leave. "Brother Song, how could you let such a shameless person off?" Song Qingshu shook his head and said, "Hua Taigon has been a hero for decades. Even if he hasn't made any contributions, he has worked hard. Many people have received his kindness. We can't sentence him to death just because of this. What's more, he didn't do anything outrageous. At most, he wagged his tail and begged Blood Knife Ancestor." Shui Sheng nodded, not really understanding. On the other hand, the girl in the light green robe pouted and snorted. "He also ate my sheep." Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. He waved the wooden sword in his hand and sent out a wave of sword energy. Soon, a small pit was dug not far away. He then took the fragrant roasted sheep from the fire and gently placed it in the pit. With a flick of his sleeve, all the soil on the side was pushed into the pit, forming a small grave. "Since you care about this sheep so much, you must have treated it as a friend. Song Mao can only do his best to give it a proper burial." The girl in the green robe sized up Song Qingshu in surprise. She revealed an innocent smile and sweetly said, "Thank you, big brother." Song Qingshu was surprised and said, "You're a strange girl. I saved you twice in a row, but you didn't thank me. Now, you're thanking me for a sheep." The girl in the green robe smiled and didn't answer. She walked straight to the side of the small mound and gently stroked it. She muttered, "Sheep, sheep, reincarnate into a good life in your next life. Don't be a sheep again. Otherwise, you'll be killed and eaten again." "What a strange girl," Song Qingshu muttered. He couldn't help but frown when he saw the Hua Taigon was sweating from exhaustion and hadn't moved many stones. "Step aside, I'll do it." Song Qingshu motioned for Hua Taigon to step aside. He then waved the wooden sword at a boulder not far away. He swung it dozens of times, and a sharp sword energy shot into the boulder. Unable to withstand the erosion of the sword aura, the boulder finally collapsed into pieces of football-sized debris. Hua Taigon, who was standing at the side, was so shocked that he could not close his mouth. His martial arts were simply unheard of. The girl in the green robe also showed a hint of surprise in her eyes. She said in a sweet voice, "Big brother's martial arts are very high." Song Qingshu smiled and said, "What's wrong? Little sister, you also know martial arts?" The girl in the green robe shook her head and said, "I don't know. I only know how to use my green bamboo stick." From the beginning, Song Qingshu didn't sense the existence of internal energy in her body, so he didn't take her words to heart. He turned around and asked Hua Taigon to bury Shui Dai, Lu Tianshu, Lu Qingfeng, and the others. "Miss Shui, let's go back to the camp first. Your uncle and the others should be very anxious about your whereabouts. When we go back, we'll arrange for people to pick up Master Shui and the others." Song Qingshu had just learned from Hua Taigon that Shui Jian, the black and white swords, and the others were divided into 3 groups. Yes, Shui Sheng had long lost her own opinion and followed Song Qingshu's lead. Song Qingshu nodded and looked at Hua Taigon. "What about you?" Hua Taigon was shocked and quickly said, "I want to stay here and keep watch for my brothers to atone for my previous behavior." He knew that if he went back with Song Qingshu and the others, Shui Jian and the others would definitely ask about what happened before. His cowardice would definitely not be concealed. It was better to stay here. Shui Sheng is soft-hearted. Seeing that I'm keeping watch for her father, she will definitely be soft-hearted and won't deliberately mention my matter. Besides, Shui Sheng and Song Qingshu are flirting with each other. There must be something going on between them. If I don't know what's good for me and disturb them, wouldn't that devil Song Qingshu tear me apart in a fit of rage? Humph, Shui Dai really has a good daughter. If I have a beautiful daughter and that devil Song Qingshu takes a fancy to her, wouldn't I be able to do whatever I want in Jianghu for the rest of my life? Shui Dai, it's a pity that you don't have the fortune to enjoy it. In the future, if I treat Shui Sheng better as an elder, maybe I can get Song Qingshu to show his filial piety. How could Song Qingshu and Shui Sheng know the evil intentions of this respectfully standing old man? Seeing that he proposed to keep watch for her father, Shui Sheng was a little moved. Her previous resentment immediately disappeared. "Thank you, Uncle Hua." Hua Taigon was secretly proud of himself. Of course, he still had a sad expression on his face. This is what Uncle Hua should do. I only hate that Uncle Hua made a mistake and didn't fight to the death with the blood knife, evil thief. It's good to know one's mistakes and correct them. Song Qingshu nodded slightly and turned to look at the green-robed girl on the other side. "Little sister, where is your home? Do you want me to send you back?" Chapter 412. A strange look appeared in the girl's eyes. She smiled and refused. "No, I still want to accompany my goat. I will go back by myself later." "I see. All right then." Song Qingshu was also in a hurry to return to the Golden Snake Camp. On one hand, he didn't want Zhu Yanai and Xia Qingqing to worry about him. On the other hand, he still had a lot of things to prepare for the Golden Snake King election. "Miss Shui, do you mind riding the same horse with me?" Song Qingshu asked. The horses in the valley had all run away, leaving Shui Sheng's beloved horse, White Knight, who was reluctant to leave its master, lingering nearby. "If I said I mind, would you not ride me?" Shui Sheng said snappily, regaining her usual slyness. "If you mind, then you can only walk. You can't let a maid ride a horse while the young master walks." Song Qingshu looked at her with a smile. Seeing him mention the previous matter, Shui Sheng felt a trace of sweetness in her heart. She said softly, "You only know how to bully me. Who was the one who said that she would work like a horse and be my maid?" Song Qingshu said maliciously. Shui Sheng blushed, but she was really grateful to him for avenging her. She didn't refute and admitted, "I will be a maid. What's so great about it?" "White Knight, come here." Shui Sheng waved to her beloved horse not far away. The white horse ran over happily as if it had a mind of its own. "Remember this person's appearance. He will be your master in the future. If he wants to ride you, you can't throw a tantrum." Shui Sheng pulled White Knight to the front of Song Qingshu and whispered in the horse's ear. White Knight was a gift from Shui Dai when Shui Sheng was a child. They grew up together and were like family. Shui Sheng treasured it very much. If he knew that Shui Sheng's father didn't even allow her to touch White Knight, Song Qingshu would be very grateful. Zhao Yebai snorted as if she was unwilling to do so. Shui Sheng smiled faintly and pressed her hand on the back of the horse. She gracefully mounted the horse and called out to Song Qingshu, "Aren't you going to come up?" "Okay." As soon as he finished speaking, Song Qingshu flipped over and sat behind Shui Sheng. Feeling the man's hand pass under her armpit and naturally hold the reins, Shui Sheng's face blushed charmingly. "Go." After bidding farewell to the green-clothed girl, Song Qingshu squeezed his legs and rode Zhao Yebai in the direction of the Golden Snake Camp. "Be gentler." When Shui Sheng saw that Song Qingshu did not show the slightest hint of pity, she stroked White Knight's mane, her heart aching for him. "I didn't use any strength." Song Qingshu cried out, feeling wronged. Their intermittent voices could be faintly heard in the wind. Hua Taigan couldn't help but spit on the ground. "Father just died, and she's already so slutty. What a fickle woman. Are you saying bad things about that sister?" The green-clothed girl stared at him curiously. "So what if I am?" Hua Taigan felt that his day had been very sullen. No matter what, he was still a hero whose name shook Jiangnan. Not only was he beaten like a dog by Blood Knife ancestor, but he also had to bow and scrape to a junior. Now, even a country girl dared to shout at him like that. Thinking of this, Hua Taigan looked at the green-clothed girl with an unkind gaze. He thought, "Today, I can't keep my integrity. Shui Sheng probably won't leak my secret. If this village girl leaks what happened today, won't I die without a burial?" Feeling the change in his expression, the green-clothed girl asked, "You want to kill me? So what if I am?" "You can only blame yourself for seeing something you shouldn't have." Hua Taigan's eyes revealed an ominous glint. He grabbed his famous weapon, the spear, and walked towards her step by step. The green-clothed girl was not afraid. Instead, she smiled. "That's for the best. I also want to kill you to avenge my sheep." Hua Taigan seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. He laughed until he was out of breath. "You, a little girl, want to kill me? Why don't you go ask around?" In Jianghu, I, Hua Taigan, have the title of invincible in jumping. Even Song Qingshu couldn't see that the green-clothed girl knew martial arts. Hua Taigan naturally thought she was an ordinary village girl. Invincible in jumping? The green-clothed girl was startled. Then, she revealed a puzzled expression. "I see that your martial arts aren't that great. You can't even beat that big baldy. How can this be called invincible?" Being poked at the sore spot in his heart, Hua Taigan immediately became furious. He stabbed the spear at the green-clothed girl. "Smelly girl, you're courting death." The green-clothed girl unhurriedly raised the green bamboo stick in her hand and casually swung it forward. Hua Taigan was horrified to find that a green light had appeared in front of him. He immediately felt that the vitality in his body had been completely destroyed by this green light. He couldn't help but gurgle. "Sword Chi, who are you? Are you asking for my name?" The green-clothed girl innocently looked at him. "My name is Ah Qing." "You woman, Ah Qing." Song Qingshu spurred his horse to gallop. Naturally, he didn't know what was happening behind him. Half of Shui Sheng's body was in his arms. Her heart was beating wildly. She finally recovered a little from the grief of losing her father. Seeing Shui Sheng shrinking her head like a quail and not saying a word, Song Qingshu couldn't help but lower his head and teased. "Where did that clever girl who bickered with me in Yangzhou go?" Shui Sheng faintly sighed. "In this kind of situation, how can I be in the mood to bicker with you?" Song Qingshu tenderly stroked the hair on her head. "Seeing how pitiful you are after losing all your relatives in one night, I'll make a sacrifice and reluctantly take care of you in the future." Shui Sheng couldn't help but spit. "Bah, who needs you to take care of me? I still have my uncle and cousin." "Cousin?" Song Qingshu's expression was strange. He deliberately sighed. "That's right. Since ancient times, cousin and cousin have many ill-fated relationships. Since you have a cousin, I won't think too highly of myself." "Hey, it's not what you think." Shui Sheng suddenly became anxious and hurriedly explained, "There's really nothing between me and cousin." Song Qingshu's face turned cold, and his voice suddenly became cold. As far as I know, your cousin Wang Xiaofeng is deeply in love with you. You two grew up together as childhood sweethearts. Aren't you being too heartless by saying that? Song Qingshu had always appreciated affectionate women, even if the object of their affection wasn't him. Therefore, he admired Xia Qingqing, Icy Snow, Shuang, and even Luo Bing very much. That was why he was so tolerant of some of their behaviors. As for Shui Sheng, who easily changed her mind and hugged the lute, he subconsciously disliked her. Shui Sheng was startled at first. Cousin likes me? Noticing Song Qingshu's ashen face, Shui Sheng immediately cried out in grievance. I really don't know. I've always treated him as an older brother. Song Qingshu was stunned, wondering if he had misunderstood Shui Sheng. Could it be that she was still young and hadn't had the time to open her heart to Wang Xiaofeng when she met him? Suddenly, an angry shout came from not far away, "Die pervert!" Then an extremely pure aura energy attacked him. Chapter 413. Song Qingshu could not help but be startled. He finally realized that the perverted thief was referring to him. I've not been a perverted thief for many years, okay? Song Qingshu was extremely depressed. He hurriedly protected Shui Sheng in his arms and struck out with his right palm, colliding with the opponent's palm energy. Because he was worried that the rebound force would crush Shui Sheng's beloved horse, Song Qingshu did not dare to use his full strength. Even so, his palm energy was not something an ordinary expert in Jianghu could withstand. Feeling a slight numbness in his hand, Song Qingshu could not help but sigh at the purity of the opponent's internal energy. Just as Song Qingshu was about to carry Shui Sheng off the horse, a young girl's anxious voice suddenly came from his arms. Uncle Xiao, don't hit him. He is one of us. One of us. A middle-aged man wearing a felt hat could not help but stop and look at Shui Sheng in confusion. You know this person? Song Qingshu also looked at Shui Sheng curiously. Yes. Shui Sheng nodded and flipped off the horse. She pulled Song Qingshu over to the man. Let me introduce you. This is my uncle Xiao, known as the swordsman of Jinyang. This is my brother Song Qingshu. He was the one who saved me from the hands of the Bloodblade, old thief. Previously, Shui Jian and Xiao Ban hadn't been able to find any trace of Blood Knife ancestor, so they realized that the two of them had fallen into the other party's trap and quickly turned around to search for him. Just in time, they saw Shui Sheng in the arms of a man in the distance. Shui Sheng was also crying. It was obvious that she had been bullied, so they subconsciously regarded Song Qingshu as a perverted thief. Song Qingshu looked at the man and thought, so it is Jinyang hero Xiaoban. Rumor has it that his mixed yuan qi has been cultivated to the peak. Seeing him today, he really lives up to his reputation. Looking at the thick beard on his cheeks, Song Qingshu felt a little strange. I remember that in the original Mandarin Duck Saber, he was a eunuch. This doesn't look like it. However, Song Qingshu was not very familiar with the plot of Mandarin Duck Saber and thought that he might have remembered wrongly. Oh, so it was that young hero who assassinated Kanshi. Xiao Ban looked at Song Qingshu again and immediately found him more pleasing to the eye. In his early years, he also lurked in the Forbidden City and tried to assassinate the emperor of the Qing dynasty several times, but failed. Later, he chose to leave the palace for another important matter, which happened to be different from the time when Song Qingshu entered the palace, so they never met. Sheng, where are your father and the other uncles? Another middle-aged man walked out of the forest. He had a dignified appearance and looked somewhat similar to Shui Dai. He had a murderous aura that belonged to those who had fought on the battlefield. Uncle, hearing his question, Shui Sheng immediately ran over and threw herself into his arms, crying bitterly. Song Qingshu, who was at the side, was secretly startled. This should be one of the 12 leaders of the Golden Snake Battalion, the former Ming Dynasty Zongbing Shui Jian. Shenger, what happened? Shui Jian's heart went cold when he saw Shui Sheng's reaction. and he asked anxiously. Song Qing-shu could not bear Shui Sheng to personally repeat the tragic scene at that time, so he hurriedly avoided the important parts and dwelled on the trivial. He roughly described the situation at that time. Bloody blade, you bastard! I, Shui Jian, will not coexist with you. Shui Jian's expression was both sad and angry, and he finally could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Shui Sheng wiped away her tears and said chokingly, Uncle, Bloody Blade, you bastard has been killed by Brother Song. Shui Jian was shocked, and he hurriedly bowed to Song Qing-shu. Thank you, Song Xiaoxia, for avenging my brother. How could Song Qing-shu let him kowtow to him? He hastily reached out to hold his arms. It is the duty of a man of the pugilistic world to help others in the face of injustice. Moreover, Miss Shui and I can be considered friends. Shui Jian tried several times, but he found that his body did not move at all, and he could not bow at all. He immediately understood that his martial arts were far inferior to Song Qing-shu's, and he immediately sighed with emotion. Fortunately, Sheng is fine. Fortunately, Song Xiaoxia happened to pass by. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Song Qing-shu smiled awkwardly. Senior Shui, I didn't happen to pass by. I came to save her. Oh, what do you mean? A trace of surprise appeared on Shui Jian's face. Song Qing-shu briefly told him how he went to visit Shui Jian's mountain, learned that Shui Jian was chasing after Blood Knife Ancestor, and quickly followed him. So Song Xiaoxia is the Golden Snake King candidate nominated by old hero Sidhu. Shui Jian suddenly realized. Rest assured, Song Xiaoxia, I have always admired old hero Sidhu's character. Moreover, you have done our Shui family a great favor this time, so I will definitely support you. By the way, let me introduce you to our nominated candidates. This is Xiao Ban, who is known as the great hero of Jinyang. The two of you should get to know each other, and when you compete for the Golden Snake King, you can help each other. Xiao Ban smiled bitterly. Brother Shui, I just exchanged a few moves with Song Xiaoxia, and he was able to force me back with a single hand. He really is a young hero. Song Qing-shu hurriedly said, Elder Zhao's primordial force is really perfect, and I am also very impressed. Xiao Ban smiled slightly, but he was secretly shocked. Generally, young people have a proud and aloof aura, but Song Qing-shu is not only skilled in martial arts, but also knows the ways of the world. After a few encounters, he is both the bravery of Chu Bawang and the slyness of Liu Bang, so I really have to guard against him. Fortunately, Quan seems to be quite close to him, and it seems that she will not become my enemy for the time being. After the two sides exchanged greetings for a while, Shui Jian suddenly said, I plan to pay my respects to Sheng Er's father first, and then arrange for my subordinates to move his body. I wonder if Song Xiaoxia, Song Qing-shu looked embarrassed, and replied with cupped hands, I still have important matters to attend to, so I'm afraid I can't go back with you. Shui Jian nodded to show his understanding. In that case, let's bid farewell here. I will visit you another day to thank you for your great kindness. Song Qing-shu hurriedly said, Elder Shui is too polite. Then Song Mao will take his leave first. Brother Song, seeing that he was about to leave, Shui Sheng was quite reluctant. She took the reins of Shining Knight White and handed them to him. Brother Song, you can use this horse. Song Qing-shu shook his head. No, with my lightness skills, this distance is not a problem. Seeing Shui Sheng's sad expression, he hurriedly leaned over and said in a low voice, Your uncle and master shall only have 2 horses in total. If you give me Shining Knight White, what will you ride later? I don't want you to ride with another man. Shui Sheng's pretty face suddenly turned red, and she couldn't help but say, They are all my elders, what are you thinking? Anyway, I don't care. Song Qing-shu stuffed the reins back. A strange feeling arose in Shui Sheng's heart, and she couldn't help but smile sweetly. Well, anyway, I have already given this horse to you. I will temporarily keep it for you. Seeing the two whispering, Shui Jian and Xiao Ban, who were not far away, couldn't help but look at each other and smile. When Song Qing-shu rushed back to the camp at lightning speed, he found that Xia Qingqing had already returned. Seeing the two women's worried faces, he couldn't help but be shocked. What happened? Chapter 414. Seeing him come back, the two women stood up and were about to greet him, but then they noticed his movement and sat down at the same time. Song Qing was stunned. Zhu Yanmei broke the awkwardness and asked, "Did you save Miss Shui?" "Yes, I did." Song Qing did not stand on ceremony and sat down between the two girls. Both Zhu Yanai and Xia Qingqing subconsciously moved their buttocks to the side, as if it was embarrassing to be too close to him. "You have been friends for many years. Why are you so distant?" Song Qing laughed and held them in his arms. Before the two women could react, he quickly said, "Not only did I save Miss Shui, but I also saw Shui Jian." The two women were attracted by his words and did not have time to deal with his evil hands. They asked, "Did he agree to support you?" "Of course. When your husband goes out, he's worth two." Before Song Qing could finish his words, the two girls pouted coquettishly and reached out to his waist. Song Qing hurriedly distracted the two women and said, "I also saw the candidate nominated by Shui Jian. He is Xiao Ban, who is known as the swordsman of Jinyang. He is quite good at practicing the mixed element force, but he is not my opponent. He is not a threat." The two women were not happy when they heard this. Instead, their faces became even gloomier, especially Xia Qingqing, who looked like she was about to cry. "What's going on with you guys?" The ominous feeling in Song Qing heart intensified. "Big brother Song, I'm sorry. I'm useless," Xia Qingqing said while wiping her tears. "The Golden Dragon Gang didn't agree to support you in the election. It must be because of Big Brother Yuan, I offended Jiao Waner." "Qingqing, don't say that. Sister Waner is not that kind of person. There may be some misunderstanding." Zhu Yanmei tried to comfort her. She had known Jiao Waner for a long time and knew that she was not the kind of person who would use public office to avenge personal grudges. Then why did she not agree to support Brother Song? "Unless," Xia Qingqing said, and suddenly looked at Song Qing with a suspicious look. "Why are you looking at me?" Song Qing was puzzled. Zhu Yu looked like she was smiling, but she wasn't smiling. She said, "Unless Brother Song has messed with Sister Waner. She is waiting for you to beg her." "Nonsense. I have never seen Jiao Waner fool around with one. How could it be because of me?" Song Qing was speechless. "Is my reputation that bad? I don't think I've harmed many women. We'll know if it's true or not. The Golden Snake meeting is imminent. So, it's very important to win the support of the Golden Dragon Gang." The two women had analyzed the matter for a long time. Zhu Yong had clearly determined that Song Qing was the reason. All right. I'm really afraid of you. I'll go there, okay?" Song Qing was obviously very puzzled. He had the intention to go and see if there was any unforeseen event in the Golden Dragon Gang. "If you want to see Waner, it will be inconvenient for us to follow you. So, I won't go with you. Qingqing and I will stay here and discuss the details of the operation." Zhu Yu pursed her lips and smiled. Song Qing nodded and asked for the direction of the Golden Dragon Gang's stronghold. Then, he used his Qing Gong to rush there. Although Ajio and Xia Qingqing spoke in a relaxed manner, Song Qing knew in his heart that Jiao Waner's refusal was definitely not because of him. It was more likely that they would return empty-handed. However, if he did not investigate the matter, he would feel a little uncomfortable in his heart. Because he had come to investigate quietly, Song Qing did not enter through the main gate. Instead, he hid his tracks and sneaked into the Golden Dragon Gang's stronghold in the dark. Song Qing quickly found the Golden Dragon Gang's meeting hall with Xia Qingqing's rough drawing of the map. He looked at the constantly patrolling guards outside. They were heavily guarded. Song Qing didn't take them seriously and smiled. He jumped over everyone's head and gently landed on the roof. "Gang leader Jiao, after this matter is completed, the Prime Minister will not treat you unfairly." A slightly old voice came from below. "Prime Minister? Which country's Prime Minister?" Song Qing was very surprised. He quickly lifted the tiles and looked down. A delicate and pretty young woman was sitting in the hall. She should be the daughter of the Golden Dragon Gang's former leader, Jiao Wan-er. A one-armed swordsman stood next to her. Judging by his attire, he should be Jiao Wan-er's martial brother, who is now her husband, Luo Liru. Although Jiao Wan-er is not a stunning beauty, she is dressed like a young woman. She looks quite beautiful. Song Qing-shu was suddenly surprised. He had obviously come to do something serious. Why did he let his imagination run wild when he saw a woman? Could it be that the demonic barrier of the Mankisvara has flared up again? Song Qing-shu's heart trembled as he thought of this. He quickly suppressed his imagination and continued to look. The delicate and pretty young woman shook her head and said, "Mr. Bei, our request is actually very simple. We don't want glory or wealth. We just want to take the gang back to our hometown of Jinling. When the time comes, the Prime Minister will make things convenient for us." "Mr. Bei, which famous person in Jianghu has the surname Bei?" Fortunately, the surname Bei was relatively rare. Song Qing-shu thought for a moment and thought of a person. Could it be Zhenjiang Chang'e Gang's Bei Haisher? From what Jiao Wan said, Song Qing-shu guessed that she was tired of living on the edge of a knife and wanted to return to her hometown to live a stable life. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but have a strange expression as he thought of this. Yuan Qingji's charm was quite great. He was able to win the hearts of so many women. He didn't expect that Jiao Wana wouldn't forget her feelings for him, even after getting married. If it weren't for Yuan Qingji, Jiao Wana would probably have taken the gang back to Jinling long ago. Now that Yuan Qingji was dead, Jiao Wana must have been disheartened. Naturally, she didn't want to stay in the Golden Snake Camp, which was a dangerous place. According to her analysis, Bei Haisher should represent the Southern Song Court, and the Prime Minister she mentioned should be Jia Sherdao, a famous treacherous official in history. Treacherous officials have nothing to do with me. But now that Jia Sherdao is in power in the Southern Song Court, Song Qing-shu hadn't thought about what strategy to choose in the future to deal with the Southern Song dynasty, so it was too early to say whether Jia Sherdao was a friend or a foe. "Don't worry too much, gang leader Jiao. Jinling is not far from Gusu, and our Murong family has some connections. When the time comes, we will help you return to your hometown with glory." A familiar voice sounded. Murong Fu. Song Qing-shu looked sideways and saw that it was indeed Murong Fu, who they had separated not long ago. He couldn't help but be stunned. Didn't he go after Murong Jingwe? Why is he here? It turned out that after Murong Bo and Song Qing-shu fought and left, he hurriedly caught up with Murong Fu and asked him not to go after Murong Jingwe. Instead, he came to the Golden Snake Camp to participate in the election of the new Golden Snake King, which would be more helpful for the revival of the country. Hearing that Jia Sherdao had chosen to support him to participate in the election of the Golden Snake King, Murong Fu couldn't help but feel happy and rushed over without stopping. Chapter 415. The Golden Snake Camp was a force to be reckoned with. Although the Southern Song dynasty had made peace with the Manchurian Qing, they still didn't want their neighbors to live peacefully. Naturally, they didn't want the Golden Snake Camp to be completely destroyed by the Manchurian Qing. When he heard that the Golden Snake Camp was electing a new Golden Snake King, Jia Sherdao had an idea. He wanted to support a puppet to help him resist the Manchurian Qing. The puppet had to be powerful and loyal to the Southern Song dynasty. After thinking about it, his advisors recommended Murong Fu of Gusu. Murong Fu was a descendant of Murong Yanzhao, the commandery prince of Hunan, who founded the Northern Song dynasty. However, Murong Fu had lost his official position in his generation. The inner court of the Southern Song dynasty believed that Murong Fu, as the descendant of a loyal minister, must be trustworthy. Moreover, Murong Fu's name in Jianghu was also very famous. Xiaofeng of the north, Murong of the south was so awe-inspiring that it increased their confidence in winning the Golden Snake King. Therefore, Jia Sherdao agreed to the plan. He sent Bei Haisher of the Chang'e clan, who had long sought refuge with Murong Fu, to the north to help Murong Fu win the Golden Snake King. Of course, If Jia Shidao knew that the Murong family had been trying to revive the Yin kingdom for generations, what would he think of his plan? According to the information reported by the spy, Bei Haishir learned that the Golden Dragon Gang wanted to return to the south, so he secretly contacted Jiao Weiner. Jiao Weiner agreed to nominate Murong Fu. In exchange, Bei Haishir promised to arrange for the Golden Dragon Gang to return to Jinling. Looking at the beautiful figure next to Murong Fu, Song Qingshu couldn't help but speculate maliciously. Since Wang Yiyin was here, would that romantic Duan Yu be nearby? Then, the people in the hall began to compliment each other, but they were all talking about trivial things. Song Qingshu listened to them and yawned. Finally, they all stood up and left. Song Qingshu quickly hid himself and followed behind Murong Fu and Wang Yiyin. He thought that he had a good relationship with Murong Fu, so he could ask him to mediate. That way, Jiao Weiner might change her mind. Song Qingshu looked at Murong Fu and Wang Yiyin. Cousin, why didn't you ask gang leader Jiao to support Song Qingshu? Didn't he just give you the 18 Dragon Subduing Palms manual? Wang Yiyin's heavenly voice rang out, but to Song Qingshu, it was like a bolt from the blue. He hurriedly stopped himself and continued listening. Murong Fu let out a sigh. If it was an ordinary matter, it would be fine. However, I have received great kindness from him, so I should repay him with my life. However, this time, Golden Snake Battalion is going to re-elect a new Golden Snake King, and I'm determined to win the title. If I can be elected successfully with the elite soldiers and mighty generals of Golden Snake Battalion, the day of the Great Yin Dynasty's revival will not be far away. But is there really a need to do this? Wang Yiyin furrowed her brows slightly. Back then, when Song Qingshu had come to her house in search of help, she had instructed him to try out the Divine Radiant Sutra. In truth, she had only read a few words about it from an ancient book, and she wasn't too confident that it would succeed. After Song Qingshu thanked her profusely and left, not long after that, he rose to prominence in the martial world and became a famous expert of the younger generation. Wang Yiyin felt quite proud of him and was filled with curiosity about what he had experienced. Later on, when Wang Yiyin was captured by Jiumaji, she bumped into Song Qingshu and was secretly taken care of by him. That was the reason why she didn't suffer any great losses. When Murong Fu came to rescue her, both of them could only watch helplessly as Song Qingshu was trapped in a tight encirclement and eventually left him. From then on, not only did Wang Yiyin feel a sense of gratitude towards him, she also felt a sense of guilt. When she found out that Song Qingshu had unreservedly given one of the supreme arts of the martial world, the 18 Dragon Subduing Palms, to her cousin, Wang Yiyin's impression of him grew even more favorable, and she secretly admired Song Qingshu's noble character and unquestionable integrity. Thus, when she heard that Murong Fu had advised Jiao Weiner to reject Song Qingshu's support, she was filled with doubt and anger. In front of outsiders, she had to consider Murong Fu's reputation, so she did not explode. Now that the two of them were alone, Wang Yiyin could no longer hold back and asked. Murong Fu hesitated for a moment and finally sighed. This time, in order to prevent others from taking over the Golden Snake Camp, the mountain chiefs of the Golden Snake Camp have stipulated that all the candidates for the Golden Snake King must meet one condition. They cannot be the leader of a sect. This way, a large number of the top experts in the martial world will be eliminated. I have always prided myself on being well-versed in both the pen and the sword. In terms of martial arts, there are few who can rival me in my age group, so the chances of me becoming the Golden Snake King are very high. Who knew? Who knew that Song Qingshu would also be participating? So what if Song Qingshu is participating? The two of you are close friends, so you should be able to help each other during the selection process. Furthermore, with Cousin's martial arts and the 18 Dragon Subduing Palms that you've recently obtained, you might not necessarily lose to him, Wang Yiyin asked in confusion. You don't understand. Although Murong Fu had seen Song Qingshu fight before, he had always held back, so he did not feel that there was a big gap between him and Song Qingshu. Who knew that the masked man would tell him that he was no match for Song Qingshu? Although Murong Fu did not know that the masked man was Murong Bo, he had always received help from him, so he trusted him very much. Murong Fu knew very well that Song Qingshu's martial arts cultivation was far higher than his. Since he said so, it must not be wrong. Therefore, in Murong Fu's heart, he had already regarded Song Qingshu as his biggest enemy in this Golden Snake King contest. It would be best if he could make him lose the qualification to participate in the contest. Cousin, even if you don't say it, I can still guess what you're thinking. Wang Yiyin inadvertently revealed a very disappointed expression. In my heart, cousin is Nan Murong, who is as famous as North Xiaofeng, a hero with an indomitable spirit, not this scheming, narrow-minded, and despicable man in front of me. Shut up. Murong Fu was furious. You're just a woman. What do you know? Since ancient times, which one of those who achieved great things was not a cruel and merciless man? When I recover the great Yin kingdom and unify the world, who would not praise me as a hero? Since you like to speak up for Song Qingshu so much, why don't you go and find him? Wang Yiyin couldn't help but sob. Cousin, you clearly know that I love you wholeheartedly, but you still say such words to slander me. Looking at her tear-stained face, a trace of pity flashed across Murong Fu's face. But soon, he recalled his mother's teachings when he was a child and understood that love was a hindrance to success. Immediately, he put on a straight face, snorted, flicked his sleeves, and left. Murong Fu knew that this was the hinterland of the Golden Dragon Gang, and that Wang Yiyin would not encounter any danger. Therefore, he didn't worry too much about leaving her here. Seeing that Murong Fu had decided to leave, Wang Yiyin became even sadder. She squatted next to the stairs, sobbing and wiping her tears. Miss, since your cousin doesn't know how to cherish you, have you ever considered finding another man to love? Wang Yiyin was startled by the voice that suddenly rang in her ears. She raised her head and saw Song Qingshu sitting next to her, with a cynical smile on his face. Chapter 416. Wang Yiyin couldn't help but spit out. What nonsense are you spouting? Song Qingshu leaned against the railing behind him and smiled casually. I saw you crying so hard, so I decided to tease you a little. Wang Yiyin raised the back of her hand and gently wiped away the tears on her cheeks. She asked hesitantly, Did you hear our conversation just now? Of course I did. Song Qingshu smiled faintly. I'm sorry, Wang Yiyin said apologetically. Song Qingshu waved his hand dismissively. What's there to be sorry about? You're not anyone to Murong Fu. You're just my cousin. Although Wang Yiyin was still angry at Murong Fu just now, she knew that Song Qingshu had discovered everything, so she subconsciously tried to explain on her cousin's behalf. Prince Song, my cousin didn't want this to happen either. It's just that this opportunity is far too important to him. Song Qingshu smiled nonchalantly. Miss Wang, you don't need to defend him. I don't actually blame him. On the contrary, I understand him very well. If I were in his shoes, I would most likely make the same choice. A strange expression appeared on Wang Yuyin's pale face. In the end, she sighed softly. I didn't think that you would speak up for him. If I don't speak up for him, how can I show off my magnanimity in front of Miss Wang? Song Qingshu laughed heartily, a carefree expression on his face. Wang Yiyin looked at him in surprise. She didn't expect him to be so honest. However, Wang Yiyin could tell from Song Qingshu's tone and demeanor that he wasn't just saying those things to please her. Although he had been flirting with her all this time, his eyes were as clear as crystal. It was clear that he didn't have any ulterior motives towards her, as he had said. Wang Yiyin looked back at all the men she had met in her life. Whether it was her fickle cousin or young Master Duan, none of them were as aloof as Song Qingshu. It was as if she was just an ordinary friend in his heart. He spoke to her casually and did not care if she hated or liked him. Seeing Wang Yiyin's dazed expression, Song Qingshu couldn't help but wave his hand in front of her. You can't really be comparing the pros and cons of me and your cousin, right? Of course not. Wang Yiyin lowered her head as a blush appeared on her cheeks. Song Qingshu did not mind and asked casually, Since Miss Wang is here, that young Master Duan from Dali should also be nearby, right? Wang Yiyin could not help but spit. Prince Song, don't spout nonsense. There's nothing going on between me and young Master Duan. Song Qingshu smiled noncommittally. That lad Duan Yu is deeply in love with you. He calls you fairy sister over and over again. I don't believe that you don't know what he's thinking. Wang Yuyin sighed softly. I'm wholeheartedly in love with my cousin. I can only let young Master Duan down. Don't you have any feelings for that lad Duan Yu? Song Qingshu looked at her with a smile that was not quite a smile. Wang Yuyin's face reddened, and she immediately pouted. Prince Song is a dignified man. How can he act like a woman and pry into a woman's thoughts? Everyone loves gossip. What's the difference between a man and a woman? Song Qingshu did not look ashamed at all. If Miss Wang doesn't mind, you can treat me as your soulmate. Who knows? I might even be able to share some of your worries. Wang Yuyin was stunned. What do you mean by soulmate? Song Qingshu said, if a woman can be a man's soulmate, then a man can naturally be a woman's soulmate as well. Miss Wang is well-read, so it should be easy for you to understand. Wang Yuyin retorted angrily, who asked you to be my soulmate? Song Qingshu's expression became serious. I owe my current achievements to you, miss, for your guidance that day. That was how I was able to reconnect my meridians. I've always been grateful to you. That's why I showed myself when I saw you being bullied by my cousin. I just want to help you as much as I can, so that you can understand your true heart as soon as possible. My true heart. For some reason, Wang Yiyin subconsciously believed Song Qingshu's words when she saw his serious expression. I still have something to do later, so I'll have to make it short. Think about it yourself. Song Qingshu coughed lightly and said slowly, I can see that Miss Wang has always liked your cousin. However, Prince Morong has always been busy with his own ambitions, so he hasn't reciprocated your love. At this time, a handsome young Master Duan appeared, and he was at your beck and call. Although you might not have fallen in love with him, you definitely had a good impression of him, and you enjoyed the feeling of being spoiled. So, although you've always been lukewarm towards him, you didn't reject him outright, nor did you take the initiative to draw a clear line between yourself and him. Miss Cousin, how should I put it? He's a classic example of someone who wants to save face. He's obviously narrow-minded, but pretends to be generous. Although he doesn't say it, he'll definitely be very unhappy when he sees this. As time goes by, he'll definitely vent his anger on you. He'll think that you, as a woman, don't know how to be reserved and self-respecting and have an ambiguous relationship with another man. Seeing Wang Yiyin's face gradually turn pale, Song Qingshu continued, So, I'll give you a piece of advice. You must understand your true heart as soon as possible. If you've really made up your mind to spend the rest of your life with Murong Fu, then draw a clear line between yourself and Duan Yu as soon as possible. If you like that brat Duan Yu more, then accept his love as soon as possible, lest you end up with nothing in the end. Thinking of how her cousin had been treating her ever since she met Duan Yu, Wang Yiyin was shocked. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that Song Qingshu's analysis made sense. But young Master Duan had treated her so well. How could she be so heartless and hurt his heart? Then who do you think I should choose? Wang Yiyin murmured to herself. When the words came out of her mouth, she was shocked. Why did he ask such a question? Could it be that she no longer had the confidence in choosing her cousin? Song Qingshu looked at her with a smile that was not a smile, but he did not expose her thoughts. He answered, Miss Wang and Murong Gongzi are childhood sweethearts. Moreover, Murong Gongzi is well-versed in both literature and martial arts. He is also quite famous in the Wulin world. Originally, he was the best candidate for Miss Husband, but what? Wang Yiyin panicked when she saw him pausing on purpose. But Prince Murong has his heart set on reclaiming the glory of Great Yin, and has no time for romance. Song Qingshu threw out a heavy bomb. Wang Yiyin felt a chill running down her spine. The Murong clan's motto of reclaiming the glory of Great Yin had always been a top secret, and only a few people knew about it. So, how did Song Qingshu know about it? Looking at the frightened look on her face, Song Qingshu smiled and said, Don't worry, Mississippi. I'll never reveal this secret to anyone, and I have no intention of using it to threaten Prince Murong. Now, you should believe me when I said I understand his choice, right? Chapter 417. If I were in your shoes, I'd probably make the same choice. Thinking back to what Song Qing-shu had said, Wang Yuyin finally understood. She couldn't help but look at him in surprise. Song Qing-shu continued, Prince Murong may be a genius in both the pen and the sword, but there are many heroes in the world. To be honest, his abilities are not even on the list. If he wants to revive the Yin Kingdom, it can only be said that he has great ambitions but little talent. Wang Yin opened her mouth, wanting to retort. But after some thought, she realized that what he said was not unreasonable. The chances of her cousin succeeding in reviving the Yin Kingdom were really slim. Actually, if that's the only reason, it's fine for Miss Wang to follow Prince Murong. The two of them work hard, and it deepens their relationship. But I see that in order to restore his country, Murong Gongzi has already entered a demonic barrier. In his heart, nothing is more important than restoring his country. In the future, if someone offers to help him restore his country, but in exchange for Miss Wang, do you think Murong Gongzi will abandon you? Song Qing-shu looked at her meaningfully. Hearing the word husband and wife, Wang Yin felt a trace of sweetness in her heart. She had a bashful expression on her face, but as she listened to the latter part, her face became deathly pale. With her understanding of Murong Fu, it was very easy for her to guess the terrifying ending. No, he wouldn't. Cousin wouldn't do that to me. Wang Yin shook her head in a daze as she muttered to herself. If you were really so confident, you would have just laughed at what I said and not emphasized it so deliberately. Song Qing-shu sighed softly. Song Qing-shu continued, Duan Yu is deeply in love with you. He will definitely treat you better than Murong Fu. Moreover, he is the crown prince of Dali. Now, that Emperor Baoding of Dali has no sons. The throne will fall to Duan Yu sooner or later. At that time, you will definitely become the empress. Compared to Murong Fu, that illusory empress of a Yin kingdom, you are far superior. Moreover, even if Murong Fu succeeds in reviving the Yin kingdom, Miss Wang may not become the empress. Then do you want me to choose young Master Duan? Wang Yuyin suddenly asked. If it were a peaceful world, Duan Yu would be the best choice for you. Song Qing-shu shook his head slightly and changed the topic. However, the countries are at war now. Dali is a small country on the border and is destined to be destroyed by other countries in the future. Miss Wang is well read. You have seen Lady Hua Rui and Empress Zhou before you, and the many imperial concubines and princesses in the shame of Jinkong. You must know what will happen to you. Wang Yin was shocked and could not help but worry for Duan Yu. The imperial emperor of Dali dynasty is Dali. Duan Yu Wang dynasty and Emperor Yu Wang. The emperor. Song Qing-shu replied, Miss Wang, do you know that for so many years the Mongols have been attacking Xiangyang without success, and that the higher-ups have begun to plan a detour to Dali and attack the Song from behind? Wang Yuyin had heard about the brutality of the Mongolian army before, and her face could not help but turn pale. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something, and she could not help but size up Song Qing-shu suspiciously. Based on what you said, you're telling me not to choose either of them. Are you telling me to choose you? Song Qing-shu smiled faintly. A beauty's affections are heavy. I already have too many women's affections on my shoulders. I'm already too busy. How could I have any ideas about Miss Wang? Wang Yin finally relaxed, but she could not help but feel a little indignant. Although she had no concept of her own beauty, Duan Yu had been calling her fairy sister these days, and she was also a little proud of herself when the people of the Jianghu saw her. Seeing that Song Qing-shu did not care about her at all, she could not help but think, am I not attracted to you at all? Of course, the thought only flashed through her mind, and she quickly calmed down. It's getting late, I have to go. Miss Wang, we'll meet again. Song Qing-shu stood up, cupped his hands in farewell, and quickly flew out of the wall. Wang Yuyin pursed her lips into a smile and waved at his back. We'll meet again, my soulmate. Although her voice was soft, Song Qingshu's eyes and ears were very sharp. When he heard the way she addressed him, he could not help but stagger and almost fall over the wall. Wang Yuyin looks gentle and quiet. She looks like a young lady from a respectable family. But she's actually hiding a cold and sultry heart. Song Qingshu couldn't help but mutter to himself after he left the Golden Dragon Gang's territory. Suddenly, the melodious sound of a zither came from afar. Song Qingshu could not help but be startled. There is actually a woman playing the zither in the middle of the night in the wilderness? Could it be the female ghosts in strange stories? When asked why he did not think that the person playing the zither was a man, Song Qingshu thought, isn't this nonsense? If a man plays this kind of sad and sorrowful zither sound, he must be an idiot and a pervert. Song Qingshu was bold and skilled. Relying on his superior martial arts, he quietly followed the sound. In the pine forest, a beautiful girl was gently plucking the strings of the zither. The sound came from her jade-like fingers. Seeing her appearance clearly, Song Qingshu could not help but walk over. A shadow flashed, and two acquaintances blocked his way. Song Qingshu faintly smiled. "Princess, you only brought these two people out. Aren't you afraid of encountering danger?" The girl faintly smiled. "Although the Xianming elders' martial arts are not as good as yours, they are more than enough to deal with ordinary thieves. As for you, we have gone through thick and thin together. No matter what, we are friends. How can you harm us? So this is how you treat your friends, princess." Looking at the Xianming elders blocking his way with vigilance, Song Qingshu chuckled. Zhao Min placed her hands on the strings of the zither and said to the Xianming elders, "Mr. Liu, Mr. Crane, you can go back first. I have something to say to Prince Song." The Xianming elders immediately said anxiously, "Is it about your safety, princess?" Zhao Min pursed her lips and smiled. "With Prince Song protecting me, what are you worried about? He is the one we are worried about." The Xianming elders complained in their hearts. They could not help but look at each other and began to communicate with their eyes. "Junior brother, do you believe that they are not having an affair? I don't care if you believe it or not. Humph, this girl was in love with Zhang Wuji before. I didn't expect her to fall in love with someone else so quickly. Actors are heartless, and whores are heartless. Whores and dogs will last forever. Why do we care so much about them? Senior brother, let's go back for a drink." "Okay." Looking at the Xianming elders gradually disappearing in the distance, Song Qingshu said with a smile, "Your two subordinates are quite interesting." They kept winking at each other, as if they could communicate with each other. "These two old bastards, I don't even need to think to know that they are definitely scolding me." Zhao Min's face turned red when she was angry. How could she not guess what the Xianming elders were thinking? But they did not say it, so Zhao Min could not lose her temper. Song Qingshu approached her step by step. "I was just wondering if the person playing the zither in this place in the middle of the night was a demon or a female ghost. I was hesitating whether to come or not. I didn't expect it to be you, princess." Hearing him insinuating that she was a female ghost, Zhao Min's face darkened. "Since you are afraid of a demon or a female ghost, why did you come? That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.